One day, I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.
We joined the Doctors as they travel the Vortex and landed at episode number 152, and Gallifrey stands. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
Happy 50th anniversary, everyone. Yay! We're finally here.
It's about time.
How was your guys' 50th celebrations?
It was incredible.
I'm exhausted. I feel, for all that dearth of nothing happening, and you will get more Who in the 50th anniversary than we will ever had Who before. And we all went, scoff, snicker,
and all in the
sure,
last
whatever.
2 weeks.
It's all been in the last 2 weeks. I'm exhausted. It's a good exhausted, but
I was telling Keith I've been on such an adrenaline high since Friday that I'm sore now. I've got like that neck ache after you've just completely like dumped out of all your adrenaline and just been. My face is actually sore. I realized my face is sore from just smiling all weekend. And now it hurts to laugh. Let me start because I'll get into just what we did, because mine was a little more simple. You guys kind of had a little grander time, but mine's actually a little more. It occurred to me last night how much more significant this was for me. I went to my parents' house because we had planned. They have BBC America, and we had planned to watch the 50th together and have just a little get together and have a party. So we made some snacks and took them over. We made a Weeping Angel food cake. Which was an angel food cake topped with a Weeping Angel figure, and then it had little white chocolate chips on it for the teardrops. And then my wife and my daughter made these really cool little Dalek heads.
They are very
that
neat.
are cake balls that are covered in chocolate with ice stalks. Yeah, and they're on top of a Oreo. They have a little ice stalk that's made out of. I think it's a pretzel covered in chocolate, and then the little the things that light up on the top are actually almonds. Almonds.
So
we made that pretzel
and
candy for the eye, and almonds,
and Oreos, and
chocolate covered over a cake ball.
Yeah, there's nothing in here I won't eat.
And then I thought I'd get clever, and because we were so underwhelmed by the Jammy Dodgers that we got as imports, I decided to make my own Jammy Dodgers.
Your Jammy Dodger incident of 2011 was very disappointing.
You have to try my Jammy Dodgers.
I will try your Jammy
Dodgers.
Dodgers.
You're my test subject because Keith didn't get a chance to. These
Daleks are delicious.
This was a tough recipe. I worked on this for hours and hours and hours
You're
and
lying,
hours
aren't
and
you?
hours. Take a bite.
Here we go. Ready? Crumbly.
2 sugar cookies and a smattering of jam between them. And I didn't go with raspberry, went with strawberry because I don't like raspberry.
2 sugar cookies and strawberry jelly.
That's it. That's all it was. I thought, you know what? It's not probably really a Jammy Dodger, but this is going to taste better.
Way better.
Oh, good. Great.
Now this is going to be my impression of Jammy Dodgers.
Really, yeah, which will be false, but that's not how they really taste.
You will now be able to do one of those clone cookbooks.
Yeah, that's right. But we had those. We had. I wanted to get Jelly Babies, but I just did not make it.
They remind me of kolaches.
Kolaches. I hadn't thought of that. They are a little like kolaches.
I'm glad you know what those are.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I could fully.
Well, they're more of a gourmet cookie, but that's the flavor and
it's the flavor of them. Yeah. It's a
Czechoslovakian had meat and cheese and stuff in them.
No. They're predominantly strawberry.
Yeah.
Really?
At least the recipe my mother found.
Huh.
And she went hardcore into the Czechoslovakian heritage to find this stuff. So.
Yep. So we went over at noon, and we had some goodies. We also had some like chips and salsa and just other things, and some dips and stuff. Anyway, we went over at noon, and we ordered pizza. My sister and her 2 kids, and me and Holly and our 2 kids, and then my mom and dad. We had pizza for lunch, and then we kind of sat around and talked and visited and waited until the 50th anniversary special. And then we watched the special. And that
you saw this on BBC America, right?
On BBC America. Actually, watched it on my parents' 52-inch TV. So.
Did you guys suffer the great fake out?
Yes.
I think everybody did.
The gigantic countdown to a commercial.
They didn't even start at 11, though, did they?
Yeah, I think they did.
Maybe I turned around and noticed it was happening. Because I think I saw it come at 9 or 8. 7, 6, 5, 4. We were all counting along. 3, 2, 1. AT&T
commercial.
We counted down to a commercial. Anyway, so...
I suppose, in all fairness, we should thank AT&T for making the simulcast
they made
possible.
that possible in the U.S. Yes.
So, thank you.
Our
Thank
version
you,
was
AT&T.
sponsored by that because we had no commercial interruptions, which was fantastic. So we watched that. But here's why this was really significant, and it didn't really dawn on me until this night. 30 years ago, and I can't tell you that it was to the day because I don't know if PBS broadcast their 20th anniversary special of the 5 Doctors on the actual day, but it was very close to the date. 30 years ago, I was at my grandparents' house with my mom and dad and sister, and we sat down and watched the 20th anniversary of the 5 Doctors at my grandparents' house on it. So my kids essentially got the same experience that I did for the 50th anniversary. And it was, I'm getting chills now. It didn't occur to me until later that night that I was like, oh my gosh, that was my experience with the 20th anniversary special. So, like I say, I don't know that it was because it was a Saturday, and I don't know if that falls right, but it was right around. In fact, I think we were there for Thanksgiving weekend. I think is when we saw it. So, it wasn't as much of an event for us because I was just a Doctor Who fan, and hey, it's on this weekend. My grandparents had 3 stations. They had NBC, ABC, and PBS. And so there was a lot of Lawrence Welk going on in that household. But it came on, and I remember sitting down and watching it. My dad saying, "That's the first Doctor," when it first came on. He said, "That's the first Doctor." He says he was the Doctor when I was young, when he was in high school. And of course, my dad didn't watch him; he didn't know because they didn't have it; it didn't play here. But he was familiar of it, with it, and knew about it because it was that era, so he knew and heard and read and whatnot. So anyway, so that was why it was significant for me. So, and then I spent the day just really interneting.
Did you watch
it
a lot
up.
of?
Oh my gosh, interneting it up and following along everybody else's fandom and fun and whatnot. So. That was my 50th day. And then in between all of that, my 50th celebration started a lot longer ago, but I've been listening to Big Finish audios. I've been watching episodes of Doctor Who. We watched a little bit of that. Yes, we watched a little bit of that marathon they were running on BBC America. Nice. That night, obviously, I watched the five-ish Doctors reboot.
I think from
today the same has been much of the same. In fact, I went and bought a DVD of Remembrance of the Doctors.
I think from Tuesday I watched Doctor Who every single day.
And I think I have too. Actually,
I can't remember if I watched anything on Monday.
I think since last week,
since
Night of the Doctor.
We watched West Wing.
Since Night of the Doctor, I've been immersed in Doctor Who because what happened with the Night of the Doctor, and I told you this earlier, is with Paul McGann. I totally got so enthused with Paul McGann that now I've blown ahead. I've listened to the next 2 Big Finish Main Range 8th Doctor audios because I got so excited about it. Which I'll probably have to go back now and re-listen to them when we actually can visit them on the schedule so I recall them.
They're targeted for January.
Oh, okay. Good.
Maybe.
Well, I'll probably re-listen to them anyway. But so I've been doing that. And then, of course, on Friday I watched the Adventures in Space and
Thursday
Time.
night we did the tweet.
Thursday
night we did the tweet along.
I think we talked, but we had talked about a lot of doing that. But yes,
we were going to.
That was part of the. And then, but how this correlates is because Sean was saying I'm just kind of blowing with the wind here. But after I watched Adventure Space, I totally immersed myself in First Doctor stories. Now I've been watching First Doctor stories. Obviously, we did, An Unearthly Child for Friday Night Hill on Friday. So I'm just I rewatched the Aztecs the other day. I almost bought Sense Rides today, but I didn't. But I've got such a.
I really wish The Invasion was still available on DVD.
Yeah.
That's such a good story.
I haven't watched
Rewatching
it. I just got your copy.
See, you've been stuck on Second Doctor.
I've been a Second Doctor run, and now I'm going to start the Crotons next week because
you've been watching in order too.
Yeah, that's the thing. I've actually
that one season you'll have watched all of it except for the one that you can't get.
Yeah, which I might just go do reconstructions just because I can. Unless they announce next week that they found him.
I'm so proud of Keith. He's watching stuff on his own. He's not even his doctor.
It's because I would have done this long ago, but you guys wouldn't let me. So now I'm going back and rewatching stuff I've already seen.
That's all right.
Well, because you kept getting on the internet. We had to keep slapping you down like a naughty puppy.
I was surprised you let me watch Ark in Space so long ago.
Yeah, and I wasn't even really cognitive enough to monitor you on that one. Fell asleep.
What'd you guys do for your 50th anniversary celebrations?
I worked a lot. I feel like I missed out on everything. So I did not get to experience the who-ness that you all did because my nights ran late and I missed Brain and Morbius and then I missed An Unearthly Child.
The thing is, though, it's not just work because you've got a full slate in the morning of classes and then
then I go to work.
So I mean, at least with me and Keith, we've got some time to ourselves.
We've actually got downtime where you
because for Keith, even though he sleeps all morning, he's up all late all night. So.
Yeah, so I've kind of tried to cram all of my Who in. This weekend has kind of been it, and so we got up, and I got off work really late. I didn't get home till about 12:20 on Friday, so you guys were already hip deep in Unearthly Child. And I had even joked with Mel earlier in the day because I was just running ragged, and she says, "What about Who tonight?" And I was like, "Well, maybe we'll just watch the first episode." Because it's Unearthly Child. She goes, "Oh, ugh, cavemen." And I said, "Yeah, ugh, cavemen." She goes, "Can we watch episode 1?" And so we joked about it. I was like, "Well, maybe watch the first episode, then we'll call it and go to bed." I didn't get home till 12:20. So by that point, it was like, screw it. So we went to bed and got up and went and picked Keith and Blake, Top City Batman, and drove to Kansas City.
Headed to Kansas City, North Kansas City.
North Kansas City.
Screenland Armor. That's what it's called. And they had this really cool upstairs loft area where they had a screen showing the airing BBC America, and then a couple of fan-made consoles, and a nice vendor booth, and a TARDIS, and a Dalek, and then a guy.
Red Dalek.
Well, they had the gold Dalek from Planet
that's right.
Comic-Con.
There is the gold Dalek.
And then the red one that was going around.
I saw the red Dalek at Planet Comic-Con.
So did I. Yeah. And that was there, too.
How did I miss Red Dalek at Planet Comic-Con? I'm friending Red Dalek on Facebook, by the way.
Yeah,
I got to do that now.
I did that already.
Where is Red Dalek? Anyway, so they had all this wonderful, wonderful stuff.
And basically a mini Doctor Who con the entire time.
Yeah, it was basically a mini Doctor. They had caricature artists where you could go and, they had the Doctor's body already drawn up, and then they put your head on it and stuff like that. The homemade consoles, which they had a complete with a wall with the roundels and everything. But it was all like cardboard. It was all stuff you could have done at home, but it was impressive looking, Mm-hmm. And then they had the Daleks, and they had us, and they had a merchandise table, which was what was the name of the vendor? Do you remember?
USA Toys. I think?
US Toys. Yeah.
Yeah, US Toys
was there, and then Dan, right? Dan Hill.
I don't remember his name.
Oh,
I failure on my part.
What's the guy that does the TARDIS?
Joe.
That's Joe.
Joe
Hall.
Joe Hall. Joe, I'm sorry, I can't get your name. I just saved my life.
I didn't, and I know Joe.
I didn't realize who he was referring to.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you knew who I was talking about. You're just as bad as I am.
I know who Joe is. I was the one that introduced ourselves.
I've had a stroke. I have an excuse. Anyway, so Joe did a phenomenal job putting this together.
It was great.
And our huge thanks to the folks at Screenland for putting this thing together. Because it was all free. I mean, obviously you had to pay for the stuff at the vendor tables and stuff like that. But
and they had concessions you could buy. They had popcorn. They had special beverages.
I'm glad it was free because I think they could have been in violation of something if they had to charge for that one. So.
Oh, really?
Well, you can't if you're not a authorized screen playing Doctor Who on the big screen. If you charge for it, you're in breach of copyrights. And so
I suppose that's true.
they
That
had
would
to
be,
offer it free, so that this was just basically everybody getting together for a party.
Don't take it away from them. It was free.
It was free, and it was awesome. And it was
awesome
on the big screen.
Yes.
And the theater was packed. I don't know if this is fact, but it wouldn't surprise me if people had to sit upstairs in the overflow where they had the BBC on the projector.
Wow.
And I did not get a picture. Then this guy showed up.
Oh,
yeah.
And apparently, because I talked to him, I was like, "Oh, dude!" I applauded when he walked in the room.
It's
I was like, "Oh, that's
for those that
awesome."
can't see the
More
picture.
talking about things that people can't see.
It's a picture. It's a guy dressed in Gallifreyan guard armor.
Well, not the armor, but the original Gallifreyan guard costumes.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, well, because armor kind of constitutes something different.
He's
now.
got a helmet on. He's wearing armor.
It's the classic series armor.
Yeah.
No, there's no armor there. It's very soft and fluffy.
Which one is it called?
Technically,
What episode was it called?
Well,
it's a chancellery
a few,
guard.
but
Chancellery guard.
that could be time, not time flight.
Invasion of Time era.
Yeah, Invasion of Time. I'm trying to specifically.
I was thinking of the Fifth Doctor one.
Ark of
Those two.
Infinity.
Yes.
Yeah, that works too. Anyway, so it's
That's Gallifreyan armor for the classic
it's
series.
not armor.
It is armor.
No,
Guards wear armor.
no, because they've now established in
No, it's
the new
Time
one
Lord.
that's armor.
That's
Yeah,
Time
that's
Lord.
Breastplate.
new series armor.
This has no armor.
This
to
is
it.
armor.
No, it's a uniform.
That's armor. You're wearing a helmet. You've got armor on.
It's epic regardless.
Whatever it is.
The
Anyway,
costume is amazing.
Whatever it is.
yeah. So
2-1, you're up at it.
let's see. Would you all like to go to the Facebook page and vote? Oh wait, we have to go to the website and vote on whether or not the Castellan Guard counts as armor or not. But he was at Armor Road. Well, that does count. Anyway, so I was talking to him. I was like, I applauded. We walked in and I was like, that is the most awesome thing ever. And he said the helmet piece.
So you just admitted that it's a helmet. So
The helmet. Yeah, it has a helmet.
yeah, but he'd be a hat if he wasn't wearing armor.
Motorcycle people wear helmets and don't have armor on.
He's
They're
got
also,
you
not
there.
guards. They're also not guards.
Lighton wore a helmet with a Dalek eye stalk sticking out of the front of it. And he didn't have armor on.
That's not a helmet, though.
Oh, Anyway, the helmet's original. It's an actual prop piece from the show from 30 years ago, and they built the rest of the costume
amazing.
around it. And so he said the costume's basically 30 years old. And I was like, I got to get a picture of this guy before we leave. And then
Well, the guy's in his 50s or 60s.
We left. Yeah.
Oh, and you didn't get your
Anyway,
picture.
I didn't get my picture of it.
Well, it's
But,
posted on
yeah,
It's posted online.
So I'll see if I can snake one away from Red Dalek and post that. But anyway, so there's a lot of costumes, and a lot of people did a great job with that stuff. And we had a lot
welcome
of
to
fun.
any new listeners who might have picked up our flyers or
Yes.
business cards and met us at the convention. Welcome. It sounds like he wants to do more also. So hopefully
Yeah, it sounds like there might be
Joe's
one for
invited
the
us back.
Christmas special.
He said they might do something for Christmas and anything
Fingers
in between.
crossed,
So.
because I'll go to that.
I don't think I can go to that one. I don't think
I just saw the one.
Fingers crossed.
So
I don't think me watching that in public would be a good thing. You wouldn't be able to hear this over the sobbing.
Keith blubbering.
totally sneaking the GoPro into your house. It's gonna be you're gonna be one of those fangirls crying internet memes.
Yeah.
So and then we saw the episode, obviously, and got faked out by the commercial, and then it just kind of started and
Washed over.
yeah, just was there, and it was big and huge,
Well, we're going to talk about the...
and cheers and tears and screams.
It was
and
definitely a different experience watching it in that big of a crowd.
a lot of lost dialogue.
Even at my party, there was a lot of lost dialogue. Because people that don't watch Doctor Who ever at my house were going, "Oh, hey, isn't that?" Of course, a lot of that's my mom going, "Is that guy that used to watch?" yeah, Mom, shut up. And Caitlin and I geeking out all over the place.
Oh,
even
I bet.
Holly, who is just a casual fan, would do a little, and she laughed at all the right places, and she got all a good chunk of the in jokes that a new fan could get, and so
Oh, the Timey Wimey puppet show showed up too.
I
Yes.
saw that in the
Yes.
pictures too. Yeah,
I forgot about them. So, but yeah, it was just a great experience.
It
and
really
then,
was.
We hung out and went down and had Fazoli's for dinner,
Yay!
and then went to the IMAX to see Hunger Games: Catching Fire. But
Which
we'll discuss that
talk
later.
about next week after I've seen it.
We've got too much to discuss tonight.
And no news.
No news.
Aside from...
There's no news?
We set a record. Did you see that?
Guinness World Record for most countries simulcast.
Yep.
Actually, there was a piece of news. According to the Huffington Post, in an interview with Tom Baker, he claims he's in the 50th.
I don't believe him.
I saw the piece a couple of days ago, and I was going to bring it up and rub your nose in it. And I thought, no, I'll wait.
I wonder if that'll happen.
So
They were all in it, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh! Sean gets... I was celebrating with him.
Okay. I was going to say, that wasn't a surprise now, though. That was a surprise yesterday.
Well, yes, but we're celebrating the fact that he was right.
And I'm celebrating on that. I was so glad that I was wrong. Well, I wasn't even wrong, because I suspected it as well. I just
the backtracking begins. The backtracking begins.
I said this, that I was hoping, hoped that it would, and I'd be elated, and I thought that it probably would, but I had my doubts that it would happen.
You've always said that you had hopes that they would be there, but you didn't think they would be.
I don't think any of us expected what we got.
Oh, no.
I don't think you even expected that one.
Who has two thumbs and knew what was coming?
I don't. Were you expecting the surprise?
No surprise. He announced it in Huffington Post.
No.
The other surprise.
No, the 13th.
Oh, that
surprise.
one's right. No, I wasn't expecting that one.
But
that's what I mean.
We're going to talk about that a little bit.
No,
That's not part of celebrations. It is, but it's not.
We'll get there.
Moving on.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Feedback.
Oh, we got lots and lots of
feedback.
Did you have to see we got a
this
last-minute one on Facebook from Dan?
Yes.
You did? Okay, good.
But first, before all of the celebrations began...
I should probably pull up feedback.
Dr. Phil sent us in some audio about Night of the Doctor.
Which we got after last week's show. So, we'll take a listen to that now.
Hey Glenn, Sean, and Keith. Hey, it's Dr. Phil here with some thoughts on the Night of the Doctor before I listen to any podcast talk about it. I've watched it probably by this point dozens of times, and I mean definitely over 3 dozen times at this point. When it first came on the web, the night before, I noticed that what the little teaser on the BBC iPlayer said was Matt Smith, David Tennant, and John Hurt. But which one will it be? Essentially that fact. I'm not doing an exact quote. And so I put it on in the morning, and I'm going to catch this before I leave for work. And so the opens, and it's like, I'm a doctor. I'm like, wait, what voice? And you see an explosion, and then McGann's there. It's like, but probably not the one you were expecting, which, of course, is wonderfully both meta. It's just fabulous. And so I'd paused immediately. I'm like, what? So I rewound it to the beginning, watched the opening again, stopped, rounded the beginning. So I didn't even go past the opening credits yet. Just saw the Paul McGann, stop, go back. And then I watched the rest of it. Before I get into any of my detailed comments, I want to just say, love it. I'm definitely one who signed the petition for, I don't know, web series, a season of Paul McGann. I don't care. More McGann as the Doctor. Prelude to the Time War. I don't care. It's just he was fabulous, and I want to see more of him on screen as the Doctor. And I love him in Big Finish, but more pre-Night of the Doctor McGann, please. Okay, some details and thoughts after watching it so many times to let it kind of sink in, and considering I put it on my phone in HD so I could watch it over and over and over again, is Sisterhood of Karn. Great. I would have expected, though, since the Doctor's great at narrow escapes, that he would have actually escaped in the TARDIS, but the crash shot on Karn was stunningly amazing. With that kind of explosion and with the shape of the wreckage, the fact that either of them had bodies that were recognizable might, in a post-Watershed Doctor Who, would probably look more like Captain Jack in Torchwood Children of Earth after he blows up. But that being said, these are just minor niggles, because I think overall it's fabulous. I was impressed with the actress who played the new head of the Sisterhood of Karn, which had a similar name to the one who was the second in command in Brian of Morbius. So I thought her performance was stunning, and McGann was fabulous. And 4 minutes, that's ages. Television, book. Anyone for chess? Bring me knitting. Oh, perfect. I mean, I don't think we've seen him be that witty on screen since the TV movie. I mean, we've heard him be that witty, but there's something great about being able to see his face saying stuff that's that ridiculous. If anyone else noticed that he stands up, kind of assessing that he's on Karn, and in the background there's kind of a cave opening to the outside with a bit of a lantern, which is part of the background. I'm willing to bet money in the shots at the end of Name of the Doctor when John Hurt turns around. So there was, I guess, some visual hinting of this. I'm hoping with the money spent, because it looks pretty expensive, that Karn set might appear again in the Day of the Doctor. Anyway, of course, Time Lord Science is elevated here. Fat or thin, young or old, man or woman. Not drive that point home anymore, which is, but that's okay. We someday we will have a woman doctor, and that will be great when that does happen. Or a person of color, or any of that. But it's just, I thought that was great to kind of accentuate that, and the fact that reminds us in Brain of Morbius that people use the elixir on Gallifrey to ease difficult regenerations. And the fact that they could resurrect him is like, no one could survive that crash. Oh, I did. No, you didn't. It's like, oh my God, that's great. I thought being able to say a lot with very little dialogue and reaction about Cass's reaction to the Time Lords and to TARDISes was great. That it's like, okay, I've got a Time Lord here, those scumbags, I can kill one while taking myself out, was amazing. And, we always have a lot of sympathy for the Time Lords, being the Doctor's people and being non-interventionists in the original series. Well, except for the CIA and all of that. But, or manipulating the Doctor to interfere and such. But I thought that they say a lot with very little time and very little dialogue, which I think shows to kind of the storytelling style of the new series, is that you can say a lot without saying much. And I would rather have that than long expanses of nothing going on, even though I would have loved for this to have been another 15 minutes longer. The cleverness of showing what probably was a photoshopped shot of John Hurt circa around when he did Alien in the reflection was nice, because I've heard people complain online that it's like, oh, we didn't see a full regeneration. Well, John Hurt is old. And, I'd much rather, I thought that was much neater and cooler to see a vague reflection of a younger John Hurt, since we're going to see him old in just like a week now. I thought that was more cinematic and interesting than just like, okay, let's do the John Sim regeneration again. I just thought it was nice to have something a bit different. And McGann, of course, saluting many of his Big Finish companions, but not all of them, was kind of nice. Charlie, Kariz, Lucy, Tamsin, Molly, leaving out Fitz, Mary Shelley, Benny Summerfield, and but I thought if it went that far, it'd be getting a little too in-jokey. I thought having his primary companions was exactly what needed to happen. Although it might have been really funny if, instead of saying, "And to Cass, I apologize," if he'd said, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry," would have been a kind of nice little in-joke. But that's not a complaint. That's just as you watch it over and over, you just start to think about all the subtleties of flavor and what you might, in your imagination tweak here and there. But I think it sets up what looks like a very exciting 50th anniversary special, and I think that more Paul McGann as the Doctor on screen, and it would be really bloody nice to actually see him in the 50th. But I think with having this turn in his character, and I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but didn't the idea of him turning to want to be a warrior seem a little bit sudden, kind of like Anakin Skywalker in Episode 3 turning to the dark side? Minus that line, I think everything else that came out of Paul McGann's mouth was just simply golden in this story. I mean, he obviously has some great chops as an actor, and he also says very little, or says a lot with very little. Does a lot through body language and expression, and I think that we are in for a good treat. And if any of the rumors of recovered Who are to be believed, then I think the next few months might be particularly exciting, and we might all be a great deal financially poorer but richer in Doctor Who. So anyway, hope you guys have a good one, and I hope you enjoy it, and look forward to hearing your thoughts on the Night of the Doctor, and by the time you probably get this, which is late, the 50th. Okay, bye.
Thanks, Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
I agree with most of what you said.
I was going to say, here,
I don't
because...
know if I agree with the last sentiment about him suddenly choosing to be warrior. To me, it came across as, well, he didn't have many other options, and the blood of Cass on his hands was just enough to finally push him to go try to put an end to the conflict.
It certainly works well within the frame of the story, but I also look at it was 7 minutes. So
Yeah.
you had to do it that way.
The first half dozen times I watched the special, I thought, this was kind of quick. But I didn't care because Paul McGann was on my screen. The second 3 dozen times that I watched it, it really kind of began to go, no, I'm okay with it, because I agree with you. It's kind of knowing everything that we know about Paul through the big finish and his doctor and his era and everything. This was, like you said, it was just that one last thing.
That one last death because of the Time War just pushed him into being part of it.
He's already resolute to go down with the ship.
Yeah, and the fact
Anyway,
that, he's already dead, too, so he could either die or try to go do some good,
right,
despite being a fighter.
Right.
So,
agreed.
Everything else, though,
I
Phil,
love
I
that
agree.
he brought up what you brought up about last week about the should have been totally mangled bodies and not much left. But so it did bother somebody else almost equally.
I threw it out as soon as I thought, no, not going there.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for that feedback, Phil. And, of course, Phil got it in with it on time this week.
Yes.
So we have his feedback for the Day of the Doctor now.
Sean, Keith, Glenn, hey, it's Dr. Phil here sending in a variety of feedback today, I guess. Firstly, I'm going to work backwards. The 5-ish Doctors reboot parody that Peter Davison directed and wrote is on the BBC website and is worth a great laugh on how the classic Doctors, McCoy, McGann, Davison, and Colin Baker attempt to get into the 50th special. It's really, really funny. And it's a good half hour worth spending with some great cameos, even from a certain Peter Jackson, which is stunningly awesome. Also, we'd already had the Night of the Doctor, which was great. We had the Last Day, which was really, it didn't really add anything. It was fine. I'm sure many of you have seen the 50th special in the theater. I got to watch it on my phone because I was just able to grab it to watch it before a concert I gave tonight because I'm driving back to Chicago. It's after midnight Saturday night, so I guess it's not the 50th anymore. Anyway, but I'll be seeing it in the theater on Monday, so that'll be very exciting. And everything I'm going to say, I'm sorry, it's going to be roiled with spoilers. Too bad at the end. The John Hurt TARDIS with Roundels, yay. The Hurt being able to be the Doctor again, yay. There's a whole lot of good in it, and I think the Zygons are kind of very incidental to the whole thing, and it's great that the brig gets a shout out near the end of the story. Great, the Chekhov's painting being an important plot element was great. I thought that was a lot of fun and very original, that we finally get a representation of Gallifreyan art after the comments of computer drawings with Romana and City of Death, that we get something kind of a lot more exciting in that realm. Chemistry between Smith, Hurt, and Tennant were a great deal, and I love the fact that I Don't Want to Go from David Tennant is kind of retconned into the I Really Don't Want to Go to Trenzalore to the end of the story. That was great. And even after the resolution of the story, the thing that kind of hit me in the stomach, well, the first one was when all of the Doctors converged on Gallifrey, including the 13th. We have a shot of very bloodshot-looking eyes from Mr. Capaldi, but that's okay. Looked very dramatic and very cool. If anyone noticed when John Hurt was regenerating at the end of the story, anyone notice that they photoshopped part of Eccleston's face onto him as he was regenerating? They didn't do the whole thing, understandably, and I think that was fine. I think the entire thing showed did exactly what it needed to do. At the very end, that he's, I could be a curator, I could be the great curator. Yes, I just think you might. And remember when I heard that voice, it was the same sort of punch in the gut that I felt when McGann stepped onto the Night of the Doctor. Long time ago, back in the 1980s, even though I'd read the Doctor Who program guide, read synopses of stories before I saw them, talk about being a total spoilerholic, I guess. I was crushed when it got to Logopolis and Baker departed the role of the Fourth Doctor. Well, I felt like part of my childhood came back in a really weird sort of way, and I found that deeply personally satisfying. Not just my fan genes going nuts, which they were, but just that it's like that was my hero as a kid, and he's there looking at the newest version or the youngest version or whatever of our hero on screen. Great stuff, and looking forward to where the show will be going next. And I think that's what Stephen Moffat really succeeded with this. And I can't wait to see it in a theater. I'm really looking forward to that. I want to hear what you guys have to say about that. Queen Elizabeth, all of that was quite humorous. I thought a lot of the stuff with the bunny rabbit and the fez at the beginning was thoroughly lightweight, but it's in the way that Doctor Who does it. And I'm not trying to say that's a gripe, because I think that there's so much heavy stuff at the end of the story that it really does kind of make a great deal of fun. So you get some silly, some serious, some gravitas, some heart, and a salute to, I think, one of the greatest shows ever made. So anyway, looking forward to hearing what you folks and all the other listeners of Traveling the Vortex have to say. And I wanted to make sure to talk about An Adventure in Space and Time. I was really impressed by it. I thought that recreating the Howl Around for the opening and closing credits was a lot of fun. David Bradley as William Hartnell was very, very good. And I'm sure you might have already seen some of the deleted scenes that showed Mark Gatiss as the third Doctor, so they can get a three Doctors sort of shot. That was of course very cool. There was some videos also that went online of some of the recreated scenes. So recreation of the great speech of Hartnell wishing Susan goodbye, of the opening version of the first story when they enter the TARDIS for the first time, of the Doctor's regeneration. All very, very cool stuff. And all his extras. There was a neat documentary that followed that was mostly hosted by Carol Ann Ford, talking about William Hartnell, which was great and very touching. I think the whole thing was very well done, and I found it very, very moving in a way I didn't expect to. And at the end of the story, when Hartnell is very, stiff upper lip and decided mutually that, to depart the role, and hopefully this will lead to more interesting stuff, for him just breaking down and saying, I don't want to go, was, at the beginning he just seems like a really irascible, difficult person. But as the entire thing unfolds, Verity Lambert's story is very compelling, Waris Hussein's story, but just William Hartnell is just such a sympathetic person in the entire story, and I really wish that we might get more of this sort of thing, because that was beautiful, simply beautiful, and a touching tribute. And at the very end, when that special person was doing their cameo across the TARDIS console from him, and even put his hands on the TARDIS console like Hartnell does in 10th Planet, it's a sign of Doctor Who's past looking forward to Doctor Who's future, whereas Day of the Doctor was the Doctor Who's present, looking back and honoring its past, and several of its pasts, all the way back to the beginning. Even the opening shot of using the opening titles from the first Doctor and having a police officer walking by Coal Hill School. Great. Great. So anyway, that's enough for me. I'm sure there's plenty more that folks want to hear from others. So anyway, keep up the great work, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Phil. A lot of good points in all of that, too.
Absolutely.
We're a little misty-eyed, Phil.
Oh,
you brought it all up again.
Anything else you want to touch on Phil's stuff?
Nope, let's just
All right,
let's truck.
Yeah.
We got lots of other feedback, so let's go first with Kirk. He says, Day of the Doctor review. Vortex crew. My review of Day of the Doctor. I give it 13 stars. Kirk. P.S. Sorry for the long feedback. Smiley face.
Agreed.
Thank you, Kirk.
Thank you, Kirk. Glad you enjoyed it. Hopefully we'll get to talk with you more and get a little more in-depth later.
Up next, Holly.
Holly writes, Day of the Doctor. Hey, guys. Wow. What a story. My eyes were glued to the TV right at the start of the opening credits. I love they used the opening title sequence from the first Doctor's era. The Doctor's reaction to Unit moving the TARDIS with him in it was classic. Don't you knock first? I liked Kate's daughter. The comment on her scarf by the Doctor was nice, and you could see the pride in her face by the compliment.
Can I jump in here real quick?
Yes.
I don't believe that was
It
Kate's
was not
daughter.
Kate's daughter.
It was, excuse me, Mom. Mom,
Yeah.
that's ma'am
Yeah.
in the UK for a
The
lot of people. So I think Caitlin asked me, too, is that her mom? And I said, no, she's saying mom, but it's ma'am, like, out of respect.
Yeah, it's like Sir.
Sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because her name was... Well, you've already retconned that
Osgood.
her name is Osgood, so obviously she's
Sergeant
related to the sergeant from
The scientific technical sergeant from
Yes.
the Demons.
So.
Demons.
Happy anniversary to you. Where did they go? I was very happily surprised that they used Billy Piper as the Moment/Bad Wolf. The interactions between David Tennant, Matt Smith, and John Hurt were fantastic. I could go for another 10 and 11 story. The artwork that the Time Lords did to represent the Time War was fantastic. The use of the Zygons was good. There was so much good stuff going on, I've watched it a few times. I'm trying to write down most of my thoughts, but I'm sure I'm going to miss a few here and there. The scene with Ten and the rabbit in the woods, with Ten thinking that he was a Zygon, had me chuckling. And I know there's a couple of Monty Python Doctor Who mashups on this floating around on Facebook. There was also another one called The Unasked Question in Plain Sight. It shows a picture of Ten and the rabbit with a speech bubble saying, what's up, Doc? Okay, back to the special. I love the ending with all the doctors working together to freeze Gallifrey. The ending in the museum when 11 thinks he'd have made a good curator, and hearing Four's voice, and then seeing him, and having him tell 11 the actual title of the art piece that they're looking at is Gallifrey Falls No More, had me tearing up. I can say that I enjoyed this special a lot, and it's going to get a lot of repeated viewings. The Adventures in Time and Space docu-movie was fantastic as well. Everyone behind it did a brilliant job. Well, I'll wrap it up here. I'm sure there's quite a bit of feedback to be listened to. Looking forward to hearing everyone's thoughts on these specials. Holly.
Thank you, Holly.
Oh, wait, Holly's not in Wisconsin anymore.
Oh, she's not?
Apparently not.
Well, she doesn't sign out that
just-
way. She hasn't for a while, I don't think.
She did include the picture that she was talking about of Ten but if you go and Google it, I'm sure it'll...
10 in the Fluffy Bunny. We'll put it in the show notes.
10 in the bunny.
Because I like making Glenn do work.
Up next is Chrissy.
What's up, Doc?
That's the
You
one.
didn't do it right. All right, next up is Chrissy. And Chrissy writes, I don't want to go back to my real life. Dear Vortex boys, oh my Gallifrey. Where do I even begin? The opening credits, the sign for Foreman's Scrapyard, Coal Hill School with Ian Chesterton listed as chairman of the school governors. Look at the Coal Hill sign. It's there.
I actually caught it the first viewing.
I did too. Yep. Clara, a teacher at Coal Hill. Unit airlifts the TARDIS to the National Gallery. Kate Lethbridge Stewart, the girl with the Doctor Who scarf. Man, I totally flipped my lid before the story even got started. I agree.
Yeah.
The best I can say about The Day of the Doctor was that it was a perfect balance between total fan wank and a great story with a lot of depth and heart. There were all those nods to the past. I would dearly love to get a close-up look at that board at Unit with the Doctor's companions. But more than that, it feels like Stephen Moffat was tying up loose ends that New Who has left behind and connecting everything together. Between this and The Night of the Doctor, all the gaping holes where the wilderness left by the wilderness years are being sewn up nice and neat. And not just sewn up nice and neat, but sewn up well. There is a sense of wanting to do this story justice and with respect and love. And really, I think it succeeds. Of course, there will be the usual complainers about this or that. It wouldn't be Doctor Who without at least a few fans grumbling about something. But on the whole, it was a beautiful tribute to the heart and soul of Doctor Who. What has made this show last for so long and what would undoubtedly keep it going for many years to come. And a big hand for Clara Oswald, everybody. Anyone notice that she's the one who saved the day? Again, 10 and 11 were totally prepared to help the War Doctor hit the big red button and burn Gallifrey to the ground, and Clara told them no. She couldn't picture her doctor destroying Gallifrey, even though she certainly knew it must have happened. It's sort of the same with the 8th Doctor. I could never, ever picture him fighting in the Time War, which is why I was glad the Night of the Doctor gave us his regeneration into the War Doctor. But even the War Doctor wanted to be forgiven for all his misdeeds, so even there, it's not fair to pile on these horrible things on one incarnation of the Doctor. At its core, the Day of the Doctor is about forgiveness and regret and wanting to change mistakes in your past. And the Doctor has had 400 plus years to think about his mistakes and how he could have done things differently if he'd only had thought of it at the time. And Clara, impossible girl that she is, was a catalyst for everything coming together. She inspires the Doctor to think of a better way to end the Time War. In essence, the Doctor rewrites his own history, but still keeping the timeline intact. I don't know how that works, but neither does anyone else. It's science fiction. It's all hypotheticals. Just go with it. It's like a boomerang. The timeline went out one way and came back for a do-over. But that doesn't mean that it never went out the first time to propel the Doctor to think about how to fix things. With all this in place now, it'll be interesting in what kind of Doctor number 12 is going to be. I'm not screwing around with the numbers. Stephen Moffat said, well, they're keeping the numbering system the same, and I'm not going to do any different. If 10 was the man who regrets, and 11 was the man who forgets, now that the Doctor's forgiven himself, what is 12 going to be? From what we have seen of him, which let's take a minute to realize for one fleeting second that Peter Capaldi was in the 50th anniversary special. He looks pretty darn awesome. So did all of the classic Doctors. And they recorded new lines for most of them. I distinctly heard Peter Davison's voice, mostly because I was listening for it. But even the first Doctor had new lines, something about calling Gallifrey, which I know Hartnell never said a word about, so that couldn't possibly have been lifted from an existing story. They must have gotten a sound-alike voice actor for the part. I'm sure I hear Sylvester McCoy. Couldn't pick out Colin Baker, but I can't imagine he wasn't in there somewhere. All the Doctors showed up to their own party. By that time, I was laughing and sobbing mess. I could hardly stand it, but it was just so wonderful. And then, what do they do? But they get Tom Baker to make a cameo appearance as the Curator, which is he an alternate version of the Doctor who retired to Earth to keep the art gallery for UNIT? At this point, who cares? I know I've often said that Tom Baker isn't my Doctor, but I know what this means for the show and the people for whom he is the Doctor. And I know that he's only come back to the franchise recently after having kept it at arm's length for so long. I was so incredibly touched by the scene with Matt and Tom. I don't know how else they could have ended it better. Sorry. It's going to be a lot of this, sorry. Okay. Oh, wait. Maybe by showing the 11th Doctor stepping out of the TARDIS into a semicircle with all of his past lives looking up to Gallifrey and talking about how he's finally going home and smiling away at the prospect. End credits, with the Doctor as having been played by 12 different people. That was amazing and incredible for all those wonderful superlative words that basically mean all the feels. So now, the Doctor has to go find Gallifrey in whatever little pocket universe it's been stored away in. Hope it doesn't take another 50 years. Remember, the Doctor said he'd been cut off from his own people clear back in an unearthly child. Yeah, I know. He went back from time to time later, but never to stay, and he always seems to run into the bad Time Lords. I really can't wait to see the kind of direction they take this new development. It's opened up a new corner of the story to explore. We've had enough of the last of the Time Lords. Let's see where this takes us now. Now, after all the awesome of the past few days, how do they expect me to go back to regular life? Oh, I'll manage it, I'm sure. It's just going to take some time. Big fandom hugs to everyone, Chrissy. P.S. I knew Billie Piper wasn't going to be Rose Tyler as such, and I really like what they did with the Bad Wolf character. This is something Moffat would just love playing around with. P.P.S. When are you all going to talk about An Adventure in Space and Time? Because I've got plenty to say about that one, too. P.P.P.S. Gallifrey stands. Chrissy.
Which Chrissy did send in feedback about An Adventure in Space and Time. So we'll read that next.
She did. She writes, no regrets or anxieties. Plenty of happy tears, though. Dear Vortex Boys, before I launch into this, I just have to thank Sean for getting back to me so I could send in feedback for this, and I also have to apologize for hijacking the podcast because I got long-winded with this, so sorry if I take something that one of you guys was going to say. Well, it's quite all right. As tough as it was to write feedback about the Day of the Doctor, I think writing about an adventure in space and time is going to be even tougher.
It's going to be even tougher for Glenn to read it.
Are you sure you want to read this one?
I'll be right. Because it's a standalone, one-off tribute story and not part of any ongoing storyline, and it's based off actual events. The fact that these things happen to real people gives it so much more weight. It's weird, but going into this, I felt like I knew the stories and the facts about how things happen because I've had so many interviews and I've heard so many interviews and things from the people who were there. But it's so much more real to watch it unfold on screen. David Bradley was perfect for William Hartnell. I mean, he looked great in the publicity pictures, and so did the rest of the cast. But once you start hearing him speak, it's just like you're actually watching the events unfold. I loved seeing his relationship with his family. His interactions with his little granddaughter were so great. I love the part where he's telling her about playing the Doctor, and she asks something like, "Does he make people better?" That concept has come up quite a bit in recent years in Doctor Who, and it's neat to see that was acknowledged at the very beginning. The scenes where they recreate various episodes of Doctor Who were fantastic. I love the stuff that they, with the failed pilot of an unearthly child. It showed how tough it was to film in the 1960s, but it was also a great way to show how many more obstacles that particular episode had to go through to get ready. The recreation of the Marco Polo set was so fantastic, as was the part where they were filming the Reign of Terror. I've heard so many stories about how the first TARDIS team, because of the close-knit family, even off-screen, and it was great to see that dynamic in the special. It was especially cute with the scene of Bill getting after Carol Ann for spending her money on clothes and things, but then he sent her flowers to apologize for being so gruff to her. I did like that they showed Carol Ann leaving the show. All the companions' changeovers were treated so well, except I was kind of sad they didn't get to show how upset Hartnell was when William Russell and Jacqueline Hill left. That would have been a good part to put in.
Agreed.
Oh well, can't have everything, I guess. There's always going to be something you wish they could have done. And I absolutely loved Jessica Raine as Verity Lambert. I admired and respected Verity before I saw this, but the performance just made me love her even more. Even though she was described as having piss and vinegar in her veins, and it seems like that was a prerequisite for getting anything done at the BBC in that kind of atmosphere at the time, she still was kind and caring towards others, and Jessica Raine struck a perfect balance. My favorite scene was when Verity was in Sidney Newman's office to convince him that The Daleks was going to be a great story, that it wasn't just about these alien robot things, but that there was depth and heart to the actual script, and it was something worthy of what they wanted Doctor Who to be. And then later, when she sees the kids on the bus playing at being Daleks, man, how great was that? She was finally justified in her decisions, and everybody knew it, and nobody was going to write her off as the young and dumb TV producer anymore. Speaking of kids as Daleks, don't get me started on the scene in the park with all... Oh, don't get me started on the scene with the park with all of those kids... where all of those kids came up to William Hartnell while he and his wife were going over his fan mail. Cutest darn thing ever. I read somewhere that they got permission to film in BBC Centre before it closed down, and they actually refurbished parts of the building to make it look the way it did back in the 1960s, so it looked authentic for filming. I don't know that they would have gotten the same feel and look to the story if they had just been recreated sets. I would agree.
Yeah.
The amount of research that went into getting that time period just right is so evident throughout this movie. We are calling it a movie. Or a special? I have no idea. The TARDIS set is fantastic, and I love the part where the designer was just throwing stuff together because Verity was pestering him about it. If that's how it really happened, I will laugh, especially considering a little conversation 10 and 11 had about the round things in The Day of the Doctor. I know I'm running along here, but the ending, oh my gosh, the ending. I mean, I started crying when Sidney Newman told Bill that they were going to replace him, and I was positively bawling when he bent down to turn the central column on the TARDIS console for the last time. But it was such a nice touch to have Matt Smith come in and just look at William Hartnell across the console, not saying a word, but just with a look of, this is what you started, and we're still doing it. Your legacy is intact. For a show about time travel and how change became such an integral part of the Doctor Who mythos, I think that was entirely appropriate and a great note to end on. Dang it, I'm almost there.
You can do it.
Mark Gatiss knocked this one out of the park. It was perfect and lovely and brilliant and all those great adjectives that basically mean it was good. Half the time I didn't know if I should cry or laugh, so I ended up doing both. If The Day of the Doctor was about setting up Doctor Who for the future, an adventure in space and time was all about paying tribute to the past, and they did it so beautifully. Also, the people who give out TV awards in Britain had better be paying attention, because if this thing doesn't get some shiny recognition coming its way, it's a sin against creativity. Chrissy.
Agreed.
Here, here.
It definitely deserves many, many BAFTAs.
Excuse me.
That's who gives them, right?
Well, there's all kinds of organizations.
So whoever gives out the shiny awards. And based on our past experience with announcing awards, I expect 3 years from now we'll be hearing something about how well An Adventure in Space and Time did.
Ooh, I wonder if it could actually be nominated for an Emmy, too.
Yeah, it was on
It
BBC
could?
America, yeah. Absolutely.
Well, it was on... Oh, yeah, it did air on BBC America.
Moving right along, up next is Rachel. Rachel writes, comment, question, hello, Vortex gang. Everyone follow my instructions.
I'm just gang now.
Slowly. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Okay, assuming everyone is still alive and coherent, where do I start with my reviews? I guess the easiest would be going in airing order. An Adventure in Space and Time. What a beautifully produced docudrama. I really got a good feel for each of the people involved, from Sidney Newman and Verity Lambert all the way down to William Hartnell's granddaughter, who seemed to hold her grandpa in very high regard. I know as docudramas that things are written so that some things are probably emphasized more. But it was still heart-wrenching to see how bad Hartnell's health got towards the end of his run on Doctor Who. I was touched at the end with Troughton watching as they were getting to film the regeneration, and Troughton mentioning how nervous he was. I'm sure he realized what big shoes he would be filling, but I was happy to see that Hartnell approved of his successor. And the end with Hartnell staring across the TARDIS console and just seeing an image of Matt Smith's Doctor. Oh my, the feels. Matt standing there looking at him was his way of saying, I know you don't want to leave this job, but it's okay. The show will endure, and you will always be the Doctor. Just beautiful. The Day of the Doctor. Oh my word. I'm still not sure it has completely sunk in what happened. I wanted to applaud Stephen Moffat and kick him in this at the same time. What a brilliantly written anniversary episode. We got action, we got adventure, we got intrigue, we got so much fan wink I still don't think I've caught it all. Just saw a screen cap from inside the Black Archives with River Song's high heels from Time of Angels. And apparently River shoes are considered a weapon. I believe it. I'm sure there are people that will find faults, but as far as I'm concerned, it was perfect. There are a few things that bothered me, mostly with the Hertz Doctor mentions Bad Wolf Girl and 10 freaks out but then it gets dropped. Since both Hurt and 10 were going to freak the entire experience, I guess it didn't really matter. I really would have loved to have Tom offer Matt a jelly baby, but I thought that might have tipped the hand too much towards Tom's character actually being the Fourth Doctor, instead of leaving it more ambiguous on who he was. And speaking of Tom, we were at a screening of about 100 people, fans of all ages. When all the doctors showed up at the high command, we all went nuts. When the clip of Chris popped up, we went even more nuts. When Capaldi's face, eyes and forehead appeared, it got even louder. When Tom showed up, I thought people's heads were going to explode, myself included. Seeing Tom there talking to Matt, I was in tears. I knew about the spoiler from earlier in the week, but being the realist I've been going into the 50th, I knew anyone and no one could have shown up. All things considering, I really loved who they did get, regardless of what people may say, what people may think of Eccleston. He's an adult that can make his own choices, although if you look closely, when Hurt starts to regenerate, you can just make out Chris's eyes. And the story. Let's not forget about the story. Gallifrey stands. I love that they found a way to bring Gallifrey back. I really hope this is where they are going with Capaldi's Doctor. My knowledge as far as Big Finish canon falls into the TV canon. But if Romana and Leela are still alive, I would love to see them brought back, and the Rani too. I would love to see the Rani as a villain against Capaldi's Doctor. Last but certainly not least, the Five-ish Doctors, a.k.a. the Fish Doctor. What a hilarious special. I think Chrissy called it Dimensions in Time Done Right. That's a good description.
That's a really good description.
I loved all the cameos, and the team of Peter, Colin, and Sylvester together. They are so funny. And now I really want to visit the Doctor Who experience. I can't wait to see what Peter and Colin have to say about it at Chicago TARDIS. I would love to see a sequel showing their reactions to Paul McGann getting his own mini-sode. Yeah. and the reaction to Tom actually being in the 50th. I think that's all I have to say for now. I'm really excited to see the Day of the Doctor again, but this time in 3D. I'll just finish by saying that I am so very happy to be a Doctor Who fan, and that I got into the show when I did. Here's to another 50 years. Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel.
Here.
We live in interesting times.
We sure do.
Let's do Alex next.
Up next, Alex.
Alex writes 12, no, 13. Hey guys, Alex here. And, the thing! And then the other thing! And then the round things! I love the round things. I'm completely lacking any comprehension at the moment. I've just watched the special for the third time over, and intend to watch it several more times over the coming week. Whilst I'm sure there will be aspects that can be criticized, plot holes that can be retconned, and clever little details missed on the first few viewings, right now I'm still in too much of a state of euphoria to do anything but cheer repeatedly. Capaldi, Baker, moment, synchronized TARDIS flying! I apologize for the brevity of this feedback, and of my last few feedbacks. I've been super busy with NaNoWriMo this month, but I promise I have lots of very clever and interesting things to say about the 50th, and an adventure in time and space. And the Five-ish Doctors. I just can't think of any of them right now. I'll get round to unloading all of my mindless gibbering into your inbox eventually, I promise. Until then, looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say about Day of the Doctor, all 13 of him. Happy traveling, Alex.
All right, and then next up is Brenda.
Brenda.
And then we got Brittany, two of them.
Yes.
Okay. Dear Vortex Gang, a stroke of genius is her subject line. Dear Vortex Gang, I was all prepared to send all sorts of feedback last week, weighing in on the 10th Doctor and offering my insightful observations about his character flaws and how they make him such a complete character with a believable and relevant story arc. And then life reminded me that, as much as I love Who, there are other areas of life that sometimes take a front seat. I had a stroke. Yes, I'm serious. I was at a symphony hall on Saturday night preparing to sing a concert when my right arm suddenly lost all function. Other than that, I had none of the usual symptoms, facial paralysis, slurred speech, etc. But a doctor friend in the chorus convinced me that a rapid response was wise. So, while one person called the ER, my friend whisked me a couple of miles away to the nearest hospital, and the stroke team went to work. I know that sounds overly dramatic, but there's not really a nonsensical way to convey this news. The incredible end of the story is that thanks to a miracle medicine that dissolved the blood clot in my brain, the stroke was halted before it did much damage. I was in the hospital for 3 days, 2 of them in the ICU, after which I was able to drive myself home and resume all of my normal activities the next day.
Wow.
I'm doing some occupational therapy to recover full function of my hand, but it's getting better every day, and I expect to make a full recovery very soon. And to show what a hopeless Whovian I am, one of my first thoughts as I lay in the ER on last Saturday was, I've got to get better so that I can still attend a 3D screening of the Day of the Doctor next week. Thankfully, this was exactly what happened, and I spent yesterday afternoon in a movie theater with hundreds of fellow Whovians enjoying the best birthday present ever. We were all seated in the theater about 90 minutes before the start, so we had plenty of time to play with our Sonics, stage cosplay mini-scenes, cheer, predict, and bond in general. During the show, every time there was a companion or a doctor sighting, or a funny line, or a callback, or a clever plot point, the entire audience responded with pure delight, and it made it so sweet to share the day with a bunch of strangers who aren't really strangers. Their family, possibly the largest family in the world. I was in tears I was in tears for the last 10 minutes of the show, and I wasn't alone. The 3D was beautifully done and really added to the variety of the vitality of the show. Prior to the start, there was an introduction done by Matt Smith and David Tennant. They talked about the 3D elements of the presentation. They teased each other about the various things appearing much more poignant in 3D. David warned everyone to watch out for Matt's chin, and he commented on David's wrinkles. It was a perfect foreshadowing of the delightful fun to follow. Then immediately after the show, there was a behind-the-lens feature narrated by Colin Baker that was part of Doctor Who Confidential and part of a video birthday card featuring birthday wishes from just about everyone you could wish for, including Chris Eccleston. I've been looking for it to pop up online, but so far all of the posts seem blocked in this country. I'm sure it's just a matter of a short time if it isn't already available by the time you record tonight. Well, I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it. I would expect, though, after tomorrow's showings that they'll probably unlock it.
Yeah. I started making a list of the wonderful moments I wanted to comment on, but when it got to a second page, I just stopped typing. Let's just say that I loved every single one of the 75 minutes. I especially love the way that Moffat took every opportunity to poke fun at the show and the fans, but do it in a loving and accepting way. It's just the way we all are. So get over yourselves. One reviewer commented that it was like Moffat had mined the comment sections all over the internet and then put it all in the script, treating everything as tongue-in-cheek, while still managing to spin a fantastic story that answered questions, advanced the plot to the future seasons, and ticked all the boxes of what everyone wanted. And I want to take a moment here to thank all of my friends here at Traveling the Vortex, because all of you have taken me on a trip through Classic Who as well as New Who. I feel I was able to enjoy the show on an even more meaningful level. All of the other extra content that has been cropping up just adds to the enjoyment. I love the Mark Gatiss docudrama and burst into tears when Matt popped up at the end, looking at David Bradley / William Hartnell with those wise and loving eyes. I even knew he was appearing in the show, but still cried. Still, David and Matt walk out together onto the stage of the Graham Norton show holding hands was so sweet. Seeing David and Matt walk out together onto the stage of the Graham Norton show holding hands was so sweet, and I really enjoyed their hilarious double act that was a continuation of the magic of the Day of the Doctor. But the best extra content by far was a tie between The Night of the Doctor and Peter Davison's witty Five-ish Doctor Reboot. You have already squeed adequately for Night of the Doctor, so suffice it to say that I agree with everything you said. As for Davison's piece, I laughed out loud for 30 minutes, then went back and watched it again just to catch what I had missed the first time. Talk about tongue-in-cheek. I'm so glad that Moffat embraced the idea and gave them a budget and access to everything they needed to make the magic it became. So, Sean was right, and I'm thrilled. I always had a similar amount of hope for the anniversary, but it was even better than I ever thought possible. In terms of traveling the Vortex evaluation, it was a giant dun, dun, dun! I am a happy Whovian and a proud one as well, and I'm excited for the future of the show. To put this feedback into context, this past week may have begun with a stroke, but it ended with a stroke of genius. I was going to say that I hope that Moffat naysayers in the Whoniverse will just shut up now and trust that he knows what he's doing, but I know it will never happen. So instead, I choose to ignore the negative Nellies and just focus on how much I love Doctor Who and how much joy it brings me. And I look forward to hearing everyone's reactions to this week's Pure Joy. 1 month to Christmas, Brenda in Atlanta. Brenda, I am so glad to hear that you headed that off and that you're doing well.
Are doing
and
well.
That you've got the wise advice to head it off early and that you're recovering, and it sounds like you're recovering very nicely. So, prayers,
all of our
thoughts,
thoughts
meditation are with you on your recovery.
Because we don't want you to be a space buffalo.
He can say that.
Yes, he can say that.
I can say that. I've been.
Sean sometimes has moments of space buffalo. So.
You don't want to be me. So.
Brenda, I hadn't read your feedback in advance, so I'm just kind of speechless at everything you just said.
Yeah.
And happy
it's
birthday
amazed.
as well.
Yeah.
Or wait, maybe it's not her birthday. It's Steve's 50th anniversary birthday. Maybe that's what she meant.
I think that's what you meant.
Well, if it was your birthday, happy birthday.
Her birthday was last month, wasn't it?
I thought it was.
Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah, okay. So yeah.
So never mind.
Never mind. No. Oh, wait. A very merry unbirthday to you. I'm just glad you're doing okay.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right, we'll wrap it up with 2 big ones from Brittany. 3.
There's Dan's feedback.
Dan came in on Facebook.
Yeah, Dan did come in on Facebook.
We'll do his last.
We'll do his last.
Okay.
And, well, before we get to Brittany's, we'll do a really short one of Scott.
Oh, yes.
Who said, "Wow, I don't want to be a spoiler, but the curator! Not a perfect story, but I'm happy." Brittany writes in and says, "Why is there never a big red button?" Hello, everyone. It's been a while since I last sent him some feedback, but I'm back. It's been over 24 hours since the day of the Doctor aired, and I'm still squeeing over it. I swear I use that word too much, but it's true. I have already watched it 2 times and watching it for the 3rd as I type this out. I loved everything about the story, especially at the end, but I will get to that later. This feedback may not be the most orderly or intelligent piece of feedback, but my brain is still not working properly, so I'm going to do this in list form to help my thoughts. The past. I loved all the huge and subtle callbacks to classic Doctor Who, such as the opening titles and the theme. Then the policeman showed up walking by the I Am Foreman scrap merchant sign, and then Coal Hill School, where it said that I, Chesterton, was the chairman of the governors. We are still getting to jokes 70s or 80s, which never gets old to me. Also, the file that Kate Stewart asked for had the name of Cromer, which was the place that Briggs thought they were transported to in the 3 Doctors.
That's what that is.
Okay. I still didn't even catch it in my second viewing, what she said. I can't forget about the reverse to polarity bit.
We didn't talk about that.
I love the bulletin board with all the pictures. I want a picture of the full board. I'm sure I missed and forgotten others. I'm sure someone will mention the ones I didn't. The Doctors. First off, I've forgotten how much I love David Tennant as the Doctor. It makes me want to rewatch his run again. I absolutely love multi-Doctor stories, so I was excited to see Tennant and 11 interact. And they were great together. I know it probably wouldn't happen, but I wouldn't mind seeing more stories of them. Then the War Doctor popped up, and it just got even more better. I loved it when he thought 10 and 11 were companions. I loved the banter between the 3 of them. I also wouldn't mind seeing those 3 together. I adored the bit with the timey-wimey. And then we get towards the end when the 3 of them are about to freeze Gallifrey, and we started to see and hear all the past Doctors. Not sure about the other ones, but what the first Doctor said was new. Then we hear No, sir, all 13. And it was Peter Capaldi! How awesome was it that he was in the 50th? And they said their catchphrases. Geronimo! Alonzi! Oh, for God's sake. Gallifrey stands! I love the bit when Hurt is regenerating and he says, I hope the ears are a bit less conspicuous this time, which made me laugh. I kind of wish that we saw Eccleston, but I'm not too distraught over it. Then the end with all the Doctors standing together, that was beautiful. Tom Baker was pretty much Night of the Doctor all over again. We just heard his voice before we saw him. I recognize that voice. Talk about serendipity, seeing how we watched Bray and Morbius just 2 days before. That conversation between him and Eleven was just beautiful and made me tear up. As much as I was excited about seeing him, I bet I was not squealing as much as Glenn and Sean. Bad Wolf.
I was crying too
I
much.
was just I couldn't be squeaking or I was blubbering.
But the blubber started early, so. Are you wiping a tear away?
A little bit.
Oh, we're sobbing messes this week. What are we going to
That's
do like
the
if they ever
episode title.
cancel the show? we won't be able to go on.
We'll all be on suicide watch.
The BBC came on with the logo and it was just the color bars and it was all... Okay, sorry.
Bad Wolf. When they announced Billie Piper was returning, I didn't know how, and I wasn't even sure I was really going to like it. Don't get me wrong, I love Rose, and I thought she was a great companion, but I was afraid when they were going to bring back the Rose and Doctor romance, which I had enough of that. Then she revealed that she was the interface of the moment, in the shape of Rose. No, sorry, Bad Wolf. I liked that. I liked that only Hurt could see her and hear her. You can't see Sean, but he's applauding that.
Yeah, we'll get there.
The balance between the seriousness and the humor, that is one of my favorite things about Doctor Who. You can be laughing with pure joy, and the next second your heart is breaking. And I was laughing through a good part of the story, but I always start to tear up anytime they mention the children of Gallifrey and the conversation between the curator and the Doctor. I was going to talk about Queen Elizabeth and the Zygons, but I think this feedback is getting long, and so I would let other people talking about that. I will mention that I like the storyline, though they didn't exactly tie it all up. There is so much more that I wanted to talk about. A bunch of little and huge things, but it is getting long, and I'm sure others will mention everything I did. Sorry if this feedback was all over the place, but I did warn you. Until next time, Brittany. P.S. I wanted to plug my blog for a second. I wrote a post about why I love Doctor Who, and she included a link. So go read that.
Yes.
She also sends in feedback about An Adventure in Space and Time. And she writes, C.S. Lewis meets H.G. Wells meets Father Christmas. That's the Doctor. So, we have been hearing about An Adventure in Space and Time for over a year now. I know some people were worried about it, but I never was for 3 reasons. 1, it's about Doctor Who, which means it will at least be good. 2, it was a docudrama, which I always enjoyed in the first place. 3, it was written by Mark Gatiss, for whom for the most part writes pretty good scripts. So I went in thinking I was going to like it. I came out loving it. I think everyone did a superb job on it. They couldn't pick a better person to be William Hartnell than David Bradley. I think he did a pretty good job They did a pretty good job casting everybody else. There are a few I'm still not sure about. I loved watching the growth of William Hartnell, especially when it came to children. At the beginning, you could tell he was the most fond. He
Wasn't.
I think I'm supposed to say wasn't the most fond of kids, but that changes throughout the story. I'm not sure how accurate that was, but it was still neat. I loved it when they kept going back to him and his granddaughter, and the scene in the park with the kids was just too adorable. I smiled at the part when he gave Carol Ann Ford all those flowers as an apology for being rude to her about spending money. It was heartbreaking watching him start to suffer from arteriosclerosis.
Arteriosclerosis. Yeah.
That word. Even though I knew he left the show due to his health. I started to cry when he broke down in his living room, when he told his wife he didn't want to go, and the tears didn't stop. The rest of the story. Tears didn't stop the rest of the story. They got worse when he was filming the last scene from the 10th Planet and looks up and sees Matt Smith's 11th Doctor just standing there. Some people probably were annoyed at the scene, but I loved it despite the mess I became. I've said this before, I think, but I've always loved William Hartnell. But after this, I love him even more. This story may have been mainly about William Hartnell, but a huge part of it was about Verity Lambert. She was amazing. She was also determined to bring Doctor Who to life, despite all the negatives and problems that went on. I loved her interactions with William Hartnell. It was really sweet. I also loved the friendship between her and Waris Hussein. I knew she left during William Hartnell's time, but that still made me feel sad. I guess that's it. I want to say more, but I kind of started this one late, and it's probably getting close to your recording time. Just one thing before I go. Please tell me we're going to do this story for Friday Night Who in the future. If not, I would gladly host a Who with Friends with this story. Until next time, Brittany.
We certainly should do that.
Maybe next year for the 51st anniversary. That's what we should do.
Well, last and certainly not least, we got in some feedback from Dan, who wrote to us on our Facebook page. If it's not too late to send in last-minute feedback, I'll keep it simple if I can. Earlier this week, I downloaded the Big Finish Light at the End special. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I watched the surprise mini-sode Night of the Doctor. I freaked out and punched the air with McGann's return to the screen. My wife and daughter watched An Adventure in Space and Time. It was a wonderful homage that even Heather and Lexi were glued to the TV. My wife even said the same thing that Glenn posted. I'll watch the older episodes with more appreciation now. I fought back a tear or two at Susan's farewell and almost lost it at the fireplace. I don't want to go. Very well done. Last night, it took me 2 viewings to catch the whole episode of Day of the Doctor. No more diapers. My son challenged the solemnness, perhaps scaredness? Sacredness. No, too much, of the episode. I had missed the first and last 20 minutes of the show, but when the replay came on, my wife and daughter rejoined me. Again, we were spellbound. Again, I punched the air with 12 TARDISes, dropped my jaw when the 13th joined in, with very telling eyes. My wife snickered at me as I failed to hold back tears when the curator entered the scene. Was I tired? Nah, just too happy. To see Tom Baker back on the screen with his cryptic background was almost too much awesome. How can they possibly top this? Of course, I said the same of the 5 Doctors. Then finally, last night, as I waited for the 3rd viewing day, I watched the special episode The 5-ish Doctors with Peter Davison, Colin Baker, and Sylvester McCoy. Not failing to mention all of the guests that had any involvement in Doctor Who and is still breathing. This was just the irreverent humor I needed to finish the night off. I still need to rewatch it just to catch all the gags I missed while laughing. To see everyone's involvement in this was heartwarming. Am I gushing too much? Perhaps. But this was a well-played anniversary that deserves it. Fans will nitpick it enough later, but for now let's just enjoy the reveals of those well-crafted secrets. I know I'll hit the replay button more than once before the Christmas special. I'll wrap this up as Heather and I are counting pennies to see if we can get to Chicago TARDIS this weekend. Odds are in our favor right now. Hopefully we'll see some fellow Vortex fans there. Dr. Phil? Thanks again, guys, and I'll check in with you later. Gallifrey stands. Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Yes.
It's kind of like England prevails.
It's our new England prevails. Well, let's begin our reviews.
Yes.
First up, we're going to do The Last Day.
Yes.
What do you guys think?
Meh.
It's
not that it was meh, but
I'm glad it was where it was as far as how it dropped.
The problem is it could never top Night of the Doctor.
Yeah, it did. They set the bar very high. I think, though, something that I focused on was we went from that, and then we just kind of went through that, now we're waiting, because that was like last Thursday that we got, Night of the Doctor. We were going to have to wait another, 9 days before we got to Day of the Doctor. And so when that one dropped on iTunes, ironically enough, I watched it, and it was one of those, I kept expecting more from it, and then it really felt like just like a video game. In fact, the the special
The
effects
visuals
weren't
and-
even that great. But the more that I sat there and I thought about it, I thought, this is that little whet your appetite. This is to let you know that, hey, the Time War is in full swing here.
Yeah.
And it was, I think it really shows the brevity of what's happening on Gallifrey. And I did like the fact that this is Arcadia, and we've heard about Arcadia before. We've heard about the fall of Arcadia before. And so to see that impulsive, even so much the arrogance of, they won't get through here.
There's no way they could ever
There's
get through
no way
here.
they could get through here. And so it really lent some brevity to what was happening on Gallifrey at the time. And so I much appreciate the piece for that. And I'm also glad it was very short.
Agreed.
But that's what I came away from it. First going, I'm not sure that was all that great. And then just kind of letting it sink in and thinking, you know what, I appreciate that for what it is.
I thought it was a great setup. Maybe not a setup. A build on top of the Time War stuff we got in Night of the Doctor. It's still setting the stage of how horrific all of this has been. And it kind of whets my appetite for a first-person shooter Who game. They can do it now. Republic Commando.
Nay.
It'd be Who's Republic Commando.
No.
That's pretty much all I thought.
No. It's not that it was bad. I agree with you guys. It came out and had this been... I got just enough of a chill when he said, "Welcome to Arcadia." That was like, oh... But that's really the only chill that I got, because, well, obviously we know Arcadia Falls. I love the kind of tongue-in-cheek stuff with the, should anything truly violent to you actually happen, like in the event of your actual death, the filter will fade, go red, and, then we'll upload it to your families, because everybody wants to see your final moments, and then red. Oh, well, now we know. I guess you don't have to send letters
Right.
On Gallifrey to the families. But I mean, it was clever to see that. But I think the problem, and maybe I'm in the minority on this one, but for me the problem was, that I've kind of been not a big fan of Let's Show the Time War in general. And so I think we got the little piece of it in Night of the Doctor, but that was mainly, that was Paul McGann. That wasn't Time War stuff. And we got a good chunk of it in Day of the Doctor, even though we didn't know we were getting it at the time. I almost feel like we didn't need this, other than to emphasize the word Sky Trench.
And Arcadia.
And Arcadia.
For those who didn't know what it was.
And kind of give us that bit. But
really, that's really what it serves the purpose of, is establishing that and what Arcadia is.
This is the funny thing, though. If this special had come out like 2 years ago, that we had here's a mini-sode, and it just popped up randomly as an Easter egg somewhere, we'd have been agog.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We'd have just been blown away. But the fact that it's coming this week of all weeks, it's kind of like, I can't get excited about it.
Yeah, pretty much.
There you go.
That's all I have to say about that.
All right.
That's all I have to say about that.
Let's step away from the storyline that's been weaving itself this week, and let's approach an adventure in time and space, because space and time, because that was the next thing
that
came down this week. So, Sean, you want to start?
I didn't get to see it until late, because we did, like I said, I was working and everything. So we went and did our stuff. We watched Day of the Doctor. We stayed in Kansas City. We watched Hunger Games. Then came home, and Mel's like, "I'm tired. I'm ready for bed." I was like, "No, I've got to get this watched, because I might be able to get up and watch something tomorrow morning before I have to go to work, and then we're recording the podcast after work. I'd really like to watch Day of the Doctor again, but I have to watch Adventure in Space Time because it's on my homework list. So if we watch it tonight, maybe tomorrow morning before I go to work, I can rewatch Day of the Doctor." She says, "All right." So even though she was exhausted, we booted it up and played it, and immediately fell into this story and just glued to it. I know everybody has had rave things to say about David Bradley, and I could do nothing but add more heaps of praise to that. The man looks like William Hartnell. He sounded like William Hartnell. He mannerisms, acted. It was just so well done. Let's get him under contract now. Let's start planning some First Doctor adventures. I don't care. Let's do this. The sets were phenomenal. The rebuilding of that, when I first saw it, and I mean, it was funny to see how, boop, 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 here, punch out the little things, and there it is. Mm-hmm. But then to see it, that they built it, and they built it full size, including that weird glass display case with the computers
That was
inside
in
of it.
the first season.
That we all went, what is that? Just awestruck. It was undescribably beautiful, that set. And chills. The acting team was phenomenal. I love Brian Cox in everything. I'm unabashedly a Brian Cox fan, but his Sidney Newman was fantastic, and just everything that came out of his mouth. No bug-eyed monsters, no robots, no, and just that. Yeah, that's him. I don't care. I've never met the guy. That's exactly in my brain. That's exactly what Sidney Newman was like.
Brash Canadian.
Yeah, Verity Lambert, whom I've always admired from the standpoint of getting the show on the air. From the standpoint of not really knowing much about her, but just the fact that she was a woman in the 60s, that had to be tough in this field. I nailed it. Sure, there's no doubt in my mind. That's exactly how this went down, and I have so much more respect for her now than just amazing. I'm a little upset that I didn't find a way to get to Long Island Who this past week to go see Waris Hussein. No, because
he wasn't there.
Oh, that's right. He
had
canceled last minute.
Yeah.
Where's he at next? Is it Chicago TARDIS or is it Gallifrey that he's going to be at?
I'm not sure.
Maybe he's going to be some. Anyway, it's good. I don't feel bad now that I missed him. But I'd like to meet this guy.
I feel bad I missed it because it was a really good con. But
well, I don't feel bad that I didn't miss him.
Right.
I suppose what I should say. But yeah, it just made me want to watch it, and just the whole thing, and it unspooled, and this, I love that they kind of picked some of the seminal moments of that show to really, obviously we get the big chunk of pilot with Unearthly Child and the caveman joke about he doesn't want to black out his teeth. And done to get on television.
I whitened my teeth to get onto TV.
and then the cutthroat nature. I'll do it.
Yeah.
But
and everyone's bemoanal over the fact that this is a caveman story.
Yeah, nobody wanted to do caveman stories. Believe us, we've watched it. We didn't want you to do caveman stories either, but all right. And then the Daleks and the fight to get that done, and then all of a sudden we're at Marco Polo, and then Reign of Terror, and then
which you guys have done such a great service of. I recognized every single episode we went through of his run that they showed, aside from 10th Planet, but I know enough of 10th Planet that I recognize it.
I was happy for that. I think there was one that I didn't recognize that fell somewhere between Web Planet and later, but I couldn't tell you now for sure what it was. But it was just a story that I went, I don't think we've watched that. But it was just enough of it. I loved how they did that, where and the TARDIS console being your timepiece.
Yeah.
Where the clock came up was such a cool touch.
Eurometer.
Yes.
And seeing, and then the quick montage shots of the new crew standing outside and doing all that.
Doing the publicity stills was
photos.
a nice way to really kind of circle through there and show the
time passing.
Well, that and just the distance that Hartnell becomes from each one of the passing crews.
Because the companions keep getting younger while he's getting visibly older.
Right.
I mean, just so well done. I love the fact that they actually shot at Television Center, and Mel and I both commented on the fact that why would you sell that building? Because it is gorgeous. It is a very cool piece of architecture. It's got so much character. I can't imagine not headquartering out of that. But okay, I'm not the BBC. Just everything about it was well done. And then, obviously we touched on the kids in the park and him leading them. We've got to get back to the dollar, and he starts shouting, and they run away, and
just his. What sells the story is William Hartnell becoming softer and warmer throughout the entire thing, because he is really not likable in the first scene. Several scenes.
Yeah, first several scenes.
Until he starts acting. And then, even then, filming the unaired pilot, he was so rough and so frustrated with everything. But he had such a great point of, I need this cassette because I need to make sure I'm pushing the right buttons at the right time, and I'm not reusing buttons. That. Yes, I loved that bit.
Mm-hmm, I did too.
And just his entire growth through it. It was phenomenally well done.
I think the beautiful part of that moment too was the fact that they had sold him because he had that sparkle. That was the words they used, was that sparkle.
Yes.
And when Verity realized, and he was coming down on himself saying, "I'm the wrong person for this. I can't do this. I shouldn't be doing it." And when she sets him down and said, she's totally sold it back to him, saying, "No, it is. It's everything. You're doing everything right, but it's my fault because we don't have that sparkle that you talked about." It was that was amazing. I was just like, wow. What this show is, what this movie was this was a wonderful, heartfelt thank you and admiration and acknowledgement of what all of those people brought to this show. William Hartnell, Verity Lambert, even Waris Hussein,
who often
Sidney
are
Newman.
underappreciated.
They really are, and I think they're overlooked. And I think this one really gives everybody their due and their thank you and appreciate, and it honors everybody in such a way. And then, as Keith said, I think what it does is the best thing it does. It shows the progression from Hartnell's character, from Hartnell all the way through to his run.
It's a lot of parallel because you see Hartnell's impact on Doctor Who, the show, but then you see the Doctor's impact on Hartnell, the person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, that's a great analogy.
And I lost my train of thought. I had something else, and I can't remember what it was. But anyway, no, I think there was so much heart put into this, and everybody did a fantastic job. And just the actor's name escapes me now. The played Hartnell,
David Bradley.
Thank you, David Bradley. Just if he doesn't get an award for this, I will be sorely mad because this was
out
just
of anybody.
Oh my gosh, he put everything into this story and did such a wonderful job. And
the show not only the deterioration of Hartnell as it went on, but the frustrations that he suffered after everybody had left him, that he didn't have any of that core group there, and he's okay, we ready, Bill? You don't get to call me Bill. You can call me Mr. Hartnell. Maybe later, And he's not being prickly about it. He's being very precise. It's like, look, you haven't earned that yet, and I get that. I totally understand where he's coming from.
And then
trying to correct them. Yeah. Well, but and then after everything's gone, and he's trying to. We want you to do this. I can't do that. The button for that is over there.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're doing. Why isn't the console up and down?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't anybody? Never mind. I'll do it. And crawling down on the floor to do it. I mean, just that whole frustration. That had to have been tough.
Oh yeah.
To go through that on that show. I mean, it'd be like you and I shooting a Tough Grit, and then all of a sudden Dave Laurie and everybody else were gone, and a whole new production team came in, and we were like, "That's not how this works, guys."
The most wonderful thing about that is there are so many stories about how Bill was so hard to work with, and that he was very rough, and that it was difficult.
This kind of shows why.
This really kind of explains why
it
was tough to work with him, and it all had to do with the illness and the frustration and the new crews. And I think the other thing that it does nice is it I think so many times people want to, especially Hartnell fans, want to vilify that next group of producers that came in. And I don't think you can do that. And what this story does is it shows the problems that it created and makes that change the antagonist without vilifying any of the individuals.
Agreed.
And I love that. I love how it was handled that way. And
in a lot of ways mirroring Doctor Who itself, that it's not Peter Davison's fault that he replaced Tom Baker. It's the nature of change. It's the fault of the show itself. Wait around, you'll get one you like later.
We got a super buzz there. I don't know if somebody's sending or receiving any information here, but I'm aware of. Right. Apologies.
And then,
sorry,
we've got to talk about the end.
Wait, the very end with Matt.
All of it.
Yeah.
the whole lead up to it.
Before we get there, I'm glad that it ends where it does.
Yeah.
Because after seeing a lot of the stuff like from the Three Doctors, and it seems like there was a lot more story they were going to tell. And I think when it came down to editing it's encompassed perfectly and ends at the right place. And so I'm glad that it didn't go on beyond where it did, because I think that was the perfect touch on how to end this story.
Yeah, Mark Gatiss can write an Adventure in Space and Time 2 and release it next year and do all the Patrick Troughton stuff.
Well, the nice thing
I would watch it.
There's a wonderful little piece that is out there. I think it showed on the BBC. I don't know if it showed on BBC America, but that kind of follows up with what happened post the 10th planet. But it's real footage and maybe even the behind the scenes that was released
Might include that.
might include that as well. So they'll have to wait for the DVD release on that, or Blu-ray.
And before we jump to the end, I also want to point out that I think the people who they got to do Ian and Barbara and Susan did a really good job with their roles.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the woman who played Jacqueline Rayner. That's her name, right? Jacqueline.
Mm-hmm. Barbara.
Yeah. And Carol Ann Ford did a phenomenal job.
I think they were dead on.
could totally... they're almost the same to me now.
No, I agree. I thought the guy that played Ian was fine.
Yeah, he did a good job.
It was really good.
And I kind of agree with Brittany that it was a little sad that we didn't get to see the impact their departure left. We saw the impact of Carol Ann Ford's departure, which was lovely and really well done. And I never thought of it before, of just the impact of everybody leaving him. And it almost feels like that would have been an even bigger punch than the gut, because it would have been Carol Ann Ford, Verity, and then these two all in a row, and that could have, I think, almost sold it a little better.
They did. They left out. No, they left
Because
before Verity.
it was during the Web Planet, wasn't it?
Yeah, her going away party, they had guys in moth suits.
Yeah, it was. That's right. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
I just think...
It was Wars first, then it was Verity.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Wars
Well,
and
Wars
Susan.
Susan, yeah.
Well, Wars, Susan, Verity.
They did a good job with it. I just feel like they could have had even more of a gut punch and made it even more relatable. I don't know.
I don't think I could handle it.
Maybe that would have been too much.
You needed to come back onto that doot happy music, and here's the new group out in front of the television center taking those photos.
Yeah.
That bittersweetness to it.
Okay, going into the departure, we've talked before about how his health contributed to it, and I just assumed, okay, he started getting sick and had to leave. I had no idea that maybe his sickness started affecting his performance, and then they kind of had to say, hey, you gotta go.
Yeah.
I'd never thought of that.
I know we've joked about being on holiday, and I honestly, I almost regret some of those jokes now. I really do.
Well, the times
Bad
we
fan.
joked about it was before he got sick.
I don't know.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, there's been times
there were
where
several of them. I mean, he was out for whole episodes, and
story.
it's.
See, I don't remember really joking about it in...
It's neither here nor
Yeah.
there. He was
Well,
on
just-
holiday.
Well, yeah, but I mean, still, it's the unfortunate combination of his illness and that production schedule, because there was no season.
Yeah, right.
It was just on.
nonstop.
Right.
You know, so every day in that environment, on that stage, which I'm sure was filled with asbestos, you know, doing that kind of work, and as he continually pointed out, the technical gobbledygook that he had to spout off. It had to be a grind, and props to the makeup department for showing that progression in the lines on his face, and as he really aged throughout it. But kind of, I don't know if they could have accommodated that, if they could have given him a break and then come back and gone to a different shooting schedule or something like that, or if it had been closer to what an American series would have run, where they would have done so many episodes and then had a break off for the rest of the year, and then so many episodes. I don't know if he would have. He certainly would have thought about sticking around a heck of a lot longer. But even when he went into Sydney's office and said, okay, something's just got to change, it just, Brian Cox, you're going to be the bad guy now, aren't you? And here it comes. And then he laid it on him.
And you could tell he didn't want to be the bad guy about it either, which made it even a harder scene to watch.
Which is interesting, because you really get the impression he very easily can be the bad guy.
Oh, yeah.
Through the whole thing, when he tells Verity, be a producer or else. You know?
Well, but at the same time, he came up with Doctor Who, and he's been championing it the entire time. He has to try to play both fields of being the TV exec and having this passion of Doctor Who and getting it going.
Right.
That balance was really well realized.
And there's almost that moment of hope there when William Hartnell's sitting there telling Sidney Newman that something's got to change, and there's almost that moment of light on Sidney's face is though, maybe he's going to tell me he's ready to be done.
Yeah.
But then he launches into, just the changes really kind of benefiting him in such a way that he can deal with it a little more. And then you just see that whole hope from Sidney's face just kind of wash away. And then that's when you go, you're going to have to be the bad guy. Yeah.
It just melts. Thinking about Patrick Troughton. Oh, yes, he'll be good. His heart wasn't in it.
Yeah.
And then to front end the bit in the fog where he pulls up and there's an honest-to-goodness police box there.
Yeah.
And the emotional weight of that hitting him, and you're kind of lost going, what's going on? Because we really start there, and then we get a flashback, and then we get a further flashback to the beginning.
Right.
But to start with that, and then come back to that moment and go, that was rough. And then the fireplace scene.
Yeah, the fireplace scene was a good one.
And damn you, Mark Gatiss, for using that line, which has now become synonymous with "I don't want to go." Something bad.
Actually, I'm glad he used it because it put it more of a real world perspective as opposed to a meta perspective, which it does in
Day of the Doctor.
Day of the Doctor.
Yeah.
No. Into Time. When he says it,
because they're
there's that twofold. There's that the character not wanting to leave and Matt not wanting to leave, or David not wanting to leave. But to put it in the hands of a character that really doesn't want to go, that really worked for me.
I'm not saying it didn't work. By that point, Mel and I were like,
like that line again.
Why are you making me feel this way? And then. We immediately bounce off of that with a humor shot of the Cybermen standing around waiting and,
smoking a cigarette.
You could go up in flames. And then he comes out in his last appearance and has to turn on the console.
Before we get there, I love that line that he says, I told him that they who was talking to Troughton, and he said, to Troughton, and he says, I told him they'd hired the best man in the country for the role, and Troughton says, and so he couldn't show up. Or they couldn't get him.
They couldn't get him.
I told them to hire.
Yeah, I told him to hire the best in the country.
He couldn't be here.
He couldn't be here.
Another great thing I liked, and I never thought of, was the Doctor messing up Ian's last name wasn't in the scripts. It was just Hartnell just getting it wrong constantly.
There's a lot of flub lines that we've kind of just wrote off as part of his charm.
Yeah.
And part of his character.
And it was it was just down to production, and they could not redo it.
See, I knew that though. So
I never
really thought much about the behind the scenes part, like 4 edits.
No, I think that
you've reached 4 and they catch it. Really?
I think
then later they write it in to make it a joke.
I think Hartnell plays off a lot of stuff.
He did
better when I watched the episodes than they really conveyed. I think they conveyed it for the importance and the impact of the film.
Right. No. I agree.
Because he, in fact, he makes a joke of it in the Romans, where he calls him Chesterfield, and Ian makes a comment about that, and he corrects it to Chesterton, but he does it in such a way that it's a joke.
Yeah.
And so
they do the same thing in the Daleks.
You get the impression that and what did they write? I don't remember them writing anything.
Well, Ian just chastised them, saying, "Chesterton, my name's Chesterton." I assume that might have been in the script.
I don't think I don't think they wrote that in. I think that was William Russell fixing
just.
That's everybody else covering for him.
You got to remember, all these people are not just television actors; they're stage actors. And when you're a stage actor, you have to be ready for anything because you can't stop. There's no other takes, and so that's how you deal with that kind of thing. And because of the nature of Doctor Who and how they were shooting television at that time, and you didn't, got 4 retakes. That was it. 4 edits. That's it. That was how they did it, and I think but I think William Hartnell comes across being able to do that in a lot of the episodes. You see him flub because he will fix it in such a way.
Yeah.
I thought that one of the most beautiful things was the moment when his granddaughter says, "You said, what was the line?
Glove instead of
drugs. Instead of drugs." Yes, and she said, and he's almost about to fess that. Yeah, I messed that up. I goofed. I got that long run. And just before he says it, she says, but that's because you couldn't touch him, right? And it was like, he just lights up like, it doesn't matter to her that it was a flub. It doesn't matter to her.
The magic of the show is
the
still working.
The magic is still working. And it was such a wonderful moment. In fact, I think it was the first time I teared up a bit. It was at that point. I was like, wow, this is going to be...
And that's a great statement, not just for Doctor Who, but for television entertainment in general, that the little mistakes, while fans nitpick them, in the overall scheme, don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll make it magic. Well, let's talk about the Matt Smith cameo, because I think there's a fandom divided on whether that was gratuitous or whether it was necessary.
I thought it was nice.
It was fine.
I'm not
I
sure
knew
where
it was
come
going to be
down
in
on
there, though.
I
so.
think it spoke...
Oh, you did?
Gatiss announced, said it several days ago.
Oh, I've been off the grid. I didn't know.
And I was too...
I thought it spoke to... I don't remember if it was something that was said in here or one of you guys said it, that it really was the look that gives William Hartnell's character in this docudrama the assurance that he has made a mark on the show, even though he's leaving. Because that was the hardest thing for him, is that he was Doctor Who. This was his lasting legacy. He was the man who played army roles all the time. He was the man that played older all the time. This was such a markedly different piece for him that he would finally get his fame and recognition for. And he felt like at the end that was being yanked away from him. And so I think that moment in the film works because it's the reassurance to Hartnell that you've cemented a legacy and you're the reason everything that will come before or will come later. It was a wonderful moment that didn't exist in reality.
Well, no.
But works so well for the frame of this story. That works so well for the frame of the story.
It's a docudrama, not a
documentary.
A documentary, yeah.
We don't know that it didn't actually happen.
Well, what it was
Abraham Lincoln might have killed vampires.
A live-action interpretation of the meme of the picture of 11 saying, Mr. Hartnell, and yes, sir, and then a picture of all the doctors and saying, thanks for getting this party started.
Right, yeah. That's what it is.
It really
that's
is.
Simply what it is.
It just, to have him, okay, I'm ready, and he gets down, and he starts the TARDIS up. Apparently that's his job now. And then to come up, and all of a sudden Matt Smith was there. And Mel and I both were taken aback. It was kind of like, what? I mean, and initially my first thought was, well, that's really self-serving to throw that in there. And it wasn't until after it was over that it kind of mellowed on it, and it was like, no, that was perfect. That was exactly what you needed there to show that, yes, it's still relevant. Yes, you started it, and look what's happened now. I totally come down on I didn't like it at first, but I totally come down on the side of it had to be there.
Agreed.
All right, well.
Anything else on this?
I cried.
I did too.
I think...
Oh, the feels.
I really enjoyed it. I think you and Brittany and Rachel and Chrissy hyped it too much for me. Because going into during Friday Night Who, they were hyping it, and this was so amazing. And
I'm kind of glad I wasn't part of
Well, it
Friday
doesn't help
Night Who
that you're one of the few on that stream that's disconnected, and I was trying really hard not to make references.
Well, yeah,
and I think the girls were doing that too.
They were trying.
But we were just all kidding. You just couldn't do it.
Had I had watched it earlier that night, I think I would have enjoyed it a bit more.
Yeah.
I think going into the 50th, I would have enjoyed it more. But how do you follow up the Day of the Doctor? You just can't.
So you watched it after the Day of the Doctor?
Yeah, I watched it after, too.
See, in a way, I almost think that...
It's a nice bookend.
It really is. I think it really worked well because of the fact that Day of the Doctor is such a... It's a nod to the past and acknowledgement of all that, but for me, it firmly lands... Like Stephen Moffat said, we're looking forward. And I really think Day of the Doctor lays that groundwork for where we're going. So then this one is all pure...
Which is why I think it works better
love
before.
To the past.
That's why I think it works better
I think
looking.
See, and
I think it's a nice... I think it's a nice setup to Day of the Doctor because it's let's not forget where we came from.
Agreed.
And then here's the big celebration.
Yeah,
I think it works.
And where we're going.
I think it works either way.
Yeah.
But James said the same thing, because I went into work today, and James was like, so you saw it yesterday? And I'm like, yeah. And he says, well, it'd be really nice if we could talk about it. And I said, yeah, because I don't know when we're doing. He says, well, fortunately for you, I saw it. And I was like, oh! And then other employees came in, and I had to turn. I'm going to apologize to you guys right now. Doctor Who's 50th anniversary was yesterday. They did the 50th anniversary special. James and I have both seen it. We're going to geek out on this all day long, and you're going to be really tired of hearing about it. And they're all like, oh, it's going to be that day. I said, yeah, it is. By the end of the day, Andrew, one of our newbies, took home Series 1.
Oh, yay!
I got him to rent it, and he's going to give it a try. So, because he's curious.
I lent my mom Season 1. She's
Did you
watched
really?
the first 4 episodes already.
Go
That was like
Mom.
a week ago.
Go, Mom! But yeah.
All right, let's move on. Let's. Rachel wants a really long podcast, but I'm afraid I'm not going to have to be able to accommodate her because we need to get through this. And get
The
it done.
feels are too exhausting, Rachel. I can't keep reliving them.
Everything everyone else said.
Well, good night, everybody.
Let's do Day of the Doctor.
And then some.
Let's do Day of the Doctor. Opening with the original.
Oh.
I'm going to say this first, and then I want Keith to start, because here's what I'm going to say. After this was done, the first thought in my mind was, we did it. Despite the fact that we haven't covered everything for Keith, despite the fact that we haven't seen everything, I finished this and I went, we did it. We got Keith enough of everything that he needed to get to this point. And that's a little bit of a patting ourselves on the back here, patting us on the back here, Sean. But it was just one of those moments that I thought we got Keith to the point where he got everything he needed out of this.
I would agree. And to think...
Only took 2.5 years.
Well, and to think in 2.5 years...
3 years. We're getting ready to celebrate 3 years.
Yeah, we are in Christmas.
We started in January.
Yeah, of 2012.
2011.
11, 12, 13. Oh, 14. Yeah. Oh, you're right. 3 years.
Holy shnikes.
And to think in 152 weeks, I've become so emotionally connected and attached to this universe that through the first viewing, I pretty much had to fight back tears the entire time. I think part of it was seeing it very first time ever on a huge screen is with all these people just overwhelming.
Sure.
Somebody else go.
He's having a hard time fighting about you're getting me now.
Well, I started there. To do the opening the way that it did was when I saw the opening scene with the original Doctor Who logo. For some reason, I never imagined. I never would start that.
I never imagined we wouldn't have the Vortex open.
Yeah.
And theme music.
When it happened
I totally
with the
expected
first...
some super duper new 50th anniversary credit title sequence.
When it happened with the first Doctors, I thought it couldn't have been more perfect. And it was from that... Because I've gone into this with some apprehension of what to... I keep thinking I've set myself up too much. This is going to end up being not a huge disappointment, but just not what I want it to be.
It's going to be the two Doctors of the...
And I thought, are they going to really be able to make this what it has to be for the 50th? And when it opened, that was my first tear-up moment. I was like,
you had me at
hello.
hello.
My gosh. They did. They had me at hello.
It started, and I almost thought, because I don't know these people who are doing this, they screwed up. They loaded something wrong thing. And then it turned to color, and I was like, oh no! Oh, then, I remember seeing set pictures of them doing that. Oh, I forgot about that.
And then the shadow, and I went, that's not a police officer. It is. And then the color is, and then the Coal Hill, and then I was like, oh my gosh, Ian Chester, Chesterton, no, oh my god.
No, I don't know if anybody noticed. It's the same cop from the 50th anniversary trailer.
Yeah.
Oh,
the one that we thought might have been William Hurt or
right.
John Hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It's who obviously wasn't.
Right.
It's the same cop.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I did not notice that.
And then Coal Hill School, and it was just like, oh. and there's Clara, and or hit the ground running.
So throughout the entire thing, the first viewing, between the crowd reaction, fighting back tears, and squeeze within myself, I think I missed half the story, or half of the thing is in it, because there's so much. There's so much more I picked up my second viewing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so much more.
I did too. I was just, it was insane. And then, even when we get out of that, we get past the fanny things, the things that just were fan service, and we get into this meat of the story.
This is one of the.
It was really paced, really well.
The best paced and best structured timey-wimey story Moffat's ever done.
That's the thing.
Where you're never lost.
It's the first time that we did timey-wimey where you weren't going, okay, wait, did that work? And
yeah.
You weren't trying to connect the dots.
And it all worked perfectly.
Yeah, you weren't like, sometimes when you had those when you were a kid, those really tough dot to dots. You was at 1, 2, 3, and you're looking for, and does this really work? It doesn't look like an arm for this gorilla. But so you kind of fudge it a little bit, and you do a little bit more of a curve on it. And you do that curve so you got more of an arm. Well, I feel like you do that with a lot of Moffat's timey-wimey. You go, okay, I'm going to make a little bit of a curve here because it looks more like an arm.
Because we don't really get it explained. We got to make assumptions.
This isn't quite the shape of a head, so I'm going to go a little more of an arch. I didn't have to do this. This thing connected all the way through. It was fantastic. Oh, it was fantastic.
Something that I don't know why, it just struck me as beautifully cool. Was, okay, so we get the obvious gag of Unit picking up the TARDIS, and, we found it, let's go rescue it and bring it in. Oh, he's still in it. Okay, that's funny. Mm-hmm. But just for all of the special effects sequences that we could have had of the TARDIS flying over London.
Of the opening.
We just have we have a helicopter and a crane and the TARDIS flying over London. Yeah. And it was just there. And it's just like, yeah. Happy 50th. There you go. It was just this giant.
It could have knocked.
Look, here's the TARDIS. It's flying over London. How cool is that? I don't know why. That just struck me as the funniest, coolest bit.
And then the fact that during that, we get the credits, and we can tell that this isn't all going to be serious because of Matt. When his name shows up and the way he's acting while hanging and having so much fun while doing it.
Banging his head on the telephone.
Ouch! And another thing that I was quite pleasantly surprised by was the fact that I had talked about how I felt like this was going to be like the plot that they were just going to leave dangling so that they could go off and do the real story of this, and the fact that it works its way back around and later it works so well.
And then the symmetry is so perfect.
I was so glad it was there. And when what's his name receives the phone call, he looks at the number and he looks back and he's like, and you don't hear the other end of that conversation. And I'm thinking, wow, what's going on there? And I
almost suspected something nefarious.
I
did too.
I did too.
Yeah,
I completely forgot about it until they came back to it at the end, and I was like, or near the end, and I was like, oh, of course. That's exactly why he gets that call.
I was just talking. Yeah, I have a time machine. Figure it out.
What's great
to just keep up, doesn't he?
Whatever it is.
What's great too is I think Dr. Phil mentioned how he felt like the Zygons were a little shortchanged and didn't have as much to do in it that he kind of wished.
Not compared to what Glenn thought they were.
And I disagree. I think we've done a Zygon story, and to do another Zygon story would be pretty much retreading the same thing. And for the most part, when we redo new villains, we do a different take on them.
We try.
We try the best we can as we read. And this is a great way to do the same story, but do a new take on it. With the portraits and them coming to the future to invade. And then the parallel of getting the Doctor where he needs to be. The War Doctor where he needs to be. That's what I think it's
works,
done really
yes,
well.
But I think the problem I had with this is it looked, for the longest time, of the typical base under siege monster invasion story. And I did. That was one of those little things that would just kind of bothered me. I thought, okay, where are we going to go with this? This has got to go somewhere I feel like, I mean, it was very in line with the fact that it was a Doctor Who thing. It was a Doctor Who trope. But I kept thinking, where are we going to go with this? Because it doesn't really fit. But to turn it on its end when we get the fact that when we get the Doctors there, and to change just how it's dealt with. It's not annihilate the monsters. It's not wipe everybody out. It's not win for the humans. It's the put everybody on the same ending. Yeah, it's put everybody on the same level and hash it out that way.
You know what I think this does for the Zygons?
But the Silurians don't end that way.
No, they don't, unfortunately.
The nice thing about this is this one done right. Although we don't know what happened.
That is my one complaint about the Zygon story.
I come down on the same side.
We never really find out how it ends.
And the Doctors don't go back to find out if it worked.
Nope.
Although they did a lot of things that they were just kind of hoping it worked.
Well, actually, they were all back at the National Gallery, so I assume that we did something with that.
Because they got to give the memory back sometime.
Yeah.
Of who they are.
We can't leave them locked in the room forever.
I think what they did with the Zygons was how they was in line with what they did with the Ice Warriors. They did a new thing, I think. While the initial trappings were the same, they eventually put it on its end and changed it, which I think was the smart thing to do.
Absolutely, I completely concur. That's why I say when going into it, I thought, where are we going to go with this? And then,
and more than any other return of a classic monster, I would compare it most to the Ice Warriors.
I'd agree with that. I liked the story that the Ice Warrior had better than the story that the Zygon, but I didn't care. It was like first we got a classic monster in the 50th. Who cares
a new classic monster, not another, because we had two classic monsters technically with the Daleks.
Well, yeah, but
I mean, it's they reintroduced the classic monster in the 50th.
Let me rephrase. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. So and not only that, we got a classic monster that hadn't been seen in nearly 50 years, it feels like.
There'd been one story on TV with them, and that's it.
Nearly 30 years.
I mean, yeah, go for it. That was, I loved it. And I didn't mind the suit. I thought everything worked.
I thought their design looked great.
The suit, the
costume.
The costume.
You didn't mind it? It looked incredible.
Yeah. No, well,
it didn't look like the old. I mean, it still had the look and feel of the old Zygons, but it didn't.
That's what I mean.
Rubbery.
Which is funny, I still think it did, but I
don't think so. Although they kept, it was almost like they were
poking fun of
it by saying the rubbery guys with the suctions all over. And they kept saying rubbery, and I kept thinking, I don't think they look all that.
I think that goes back to whoever made the comment about.
That goes back to the squid analogy of rubbery calamari.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to whoever made the comment about Stephen Moffat trolling fan comments. There was probably, here's a picture of a Zygon, and somebody probably said, it's the stupid rubbery suction cup monsters. Okay, and he wrote that into the script that it's going to be. I have to agree with Brittany. I knew, obviously, we knew going into it, David Tennant's going to be there. We knew that Billy Piper's going to be in it, and I had this little bit of just. Okay. I didn't know how excited
I was excited about 10 coming back. I wasn't so much.
I was excited about a multi-doctor story.
Yes, yeah.
But I don't know that I was really excited about Tennant. I really have to be honest there. That I kind of went into it going.
The most recent too.
I know,
so
but I just
that's why we're not. We.
But you guys are Tennant haters. So
I'm not a hater.
No, I'm not a hater.
I can be a Rose hater, but not.
Here's the funny thing. So I kind
don't see how David Tennant can be anybody's doctor.
I kind of went into it with that, okay. And then David Tennant showed up and started spouting dialogue at 9,000 miles an hour.
Not missing a beat.
And I realized how much I have missed him.
Yeah.
I didn't. Yeah. It didn't hit me until I saw him again.
I was excited about him coming back.
I was
so
glad
excited to see him in it. I was excited that it was going to be David Tennant, and I still forgot how much I missed him.
I totally forgot how much I missed him on my screen and how much I enjoyed his portrayal of the Doctor.
I agree.
Even though he was given some rather ludicrous, silly, goofy things to do, like talking to a rabbit and insulting the Queen of England
So
repeatedly.
That was very tense.
Well, not only did it totally worked for his character, it also fit in with the fact that, I mean, let's be honest, later on in the story, about an hour later in the story, we're going to be talking about nuking 2.7 billion children.
Right.
We need this.
You
lightness.
needed that moment of levity early, and so I don't mind that it was there. And it you know, ding. What is it? It's a thing that goes ding. Also downloads comics from the future. I don't know when to stop. Yeah.
It was so in line with 10, though. It was so in line with everything that the character was and is. And
now,
and I love how they used Rose.
I
Billie
am
Piper.
so thrilled that Billie Piper was not Rose, and that it wasn't the typical Tenet. I think that's what I was really dreading. I really honestly think it was. I don't know that I can handle another 10 Rose pairing of, let's go off and save the universe again.
Here's what Stephen Moffat said about it. Did you guys read this?
I did see that.
All right. So he said that Billy had to be in it. He wasn't sure he wanted to do anything with Rose because he knew that Rose's story was done and that Russell had tied it up nicely and was perfect. And even coming back at the end of
he didn't want to
the end of time, it was. But he knew that Billy needed to be in this because he said to him the first 2 years of the new series is really Billy's story.
Well,
yeah.
It's really Rose. And so Billy is as much to credit for the new series as anything. So he said, I knew I had to have her in it. And so when he did it in this way, now I'm stepping out of that interview, and by doing it this way, he was able to fulfill both parts of that. The fact that it was Billy is the reason, but we don't have to do the Rose story is done. And so by doing it this way, although I'm going to go further here in a little bit when we get there, I'm going to go a little bit further. And hopefully you guys notice it. And maybe if you didn't, I might blow your minds. But by doing it that way was fantastic, and not having that interaction with 10 was perfect. I'm glad he never saw her.
Talked to her.
So glad that it was just the War Doctor that got the interaction with her, and no one ever saw her. I thought that was perfect, and it was she was phenomenal. She's one of those actresses that I have loved. I've loved Rose from the beginning, and I thought Billie Piper was marvelous in that role.
I forgot how much I enjoyed Billie Piper.
I think as Billie Piper went through the series, she got to be such a better actress.
I agree.
But I never would have said that, wow, she's a phenomenal actress. When I saw her in this and what she did with that character, I went, wow, she is up there now in the echelons of television actors for me. And I think that's because she's done so much other things, and she's
grown even since then.
Yeah.
She was fantastic in this, and I think she's up there in those upper echelons now of British actors. So to go from a pop star to somebody that I consider one of the top British actors now on television, you go.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, agreed.
And when we got the trailer, everyone was speculating that, this is Bad Wolf Rose. I was it essentially is. I was so worried of how they were going to try to make that work.
How do you
get your audience to wrap their brain around that idea?
Because you're going to pull them out right in the middle of the story to do it? I didn't buy it. It was like, that's not going to work.
And the costume just didn't make sense from what I saw.
Yeah, that was what finally cued me in when I kept seeing the production photos that I wasn't looking at come out. And it was like, what on earth is she wearing? Mm-hmm. That's when I knew it's not Rose. Yeah. I don't know who this is going to be, but it's not Rose, and I'm okay with it. And then she showed up and she wasn't Rose. It's like, score one for the home team because you did it right.
Yes,
because I don't think you can put Rose in this story. Mm-mm. There's no room for it. So I totally agree with Stephen Moffat.
What's great is this is a multi-doctor story, not a multi-companion story. I think that helps it. The fact that we got Clara and that's it.
It helps the story.
It helps the story.
It does not help deter from the fact that a lot of people were upset that we didn't see any, but it helps the story.
It helps story-wise, and that's what we got to come down to.
We've talked about before is that with multi-doctor stories, it winds up being this huge clash of egos.
Well, and that's the great thing about this is it didn't feel like it was a clash of egos. It felt balanced. Well, all three doctors, I felt, had equal time and equal responsibility.
All three doctors found a balance. Well, it started out as a clash of egos, which was brilliantly painted and necessary because that's the light, fun, multi-doctor story.
It very much echoed the Three Doctors, where Pertwee and Troughton come together and start butting heads over, well, you're this and you're that and you're this and you're this, and it takes Hartnell to show up and put them in their place. And he mirrored that because you've got Tennant and Smith kind of, oh, look at you and you're funny. Yeah, look at your shoes, blah, blah, blah. And then John Hurt shows up and starts verbally smacking him around. And it worked wonderfully. It was so great.
Were what you were going to blow our minds with Rose related, or should
We'll
we
get
move
there.
on?
We'll get there.
Okay.
Yes and no.
Let's move to the War Doctor.
I am beyond thrilled that John Hurt was the Doctor.
I agree.
Yes.
In every way conceivable, that he wasn't, because I really thought that's the one thing that I can kind of complain about from the standpoint compared to the McGann reveal, that there weren't any surprises. This went pretty much the way we thought it was going to go. Story-wise, I mean,
Aside from the end, yes.
we knew that John Hurt was going to be the War Doctor. We were going to get some Time War Gallifrey, and that we were going to deal with the moment. And that
was
really
about
is
it.
the crux of the story.
That was about it.
But that really is the crux of the story.
So we knew what the crux was going to be.
So we got what
And there were
we
going to be
got.
light on somewhere.
Yeah, and there was we got what we expected from that. I expected John Hurt to be grumpy and and embattled and just,
Gruff and
mean and all those things that the Doctor, that's why he turned
And I think
his
he
back.
was. I think he was. I think he was all the way up until we're introduced to him.
I would agree.
Okay, maybe there's that.
Yeah.
But then all of a
Well,
sudden...
I get that impression from the backstory, and I get the impression from the No More, shooting the No More into the wall. I get the impression that's the Doctor, that what you just described is the Doctor that has been between the Regeneration and Night of the Doctor, and where we're introduced to him.
Okay, maybe.
And the Doctor will never see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
But I think that it conveyed that well enough that I don't feel that's open ended. That I have to see that.
No, I don't.
absolutely.
I
think it was
don't
conveyed
want to
to
see
me.
it. I like the fact that he showed up and he was warm and friendly and funny, and the scene that he had, all the scenes that he had with Billie Piper were fun scenes. When he's locking her out of the building and she turns back around, it's not a chair. Why can't it be both? And, he's flummoxed by her. And then the touching scenes that he had with Clara later, when she's sitting in the chair,
and then
just
even the
everything
touching
worked.
scenes at the very end where she's talking about the sound of the TARDIS.
Yeah, and the way that he would get excited, when they started sharing ideas, and he would do the hands on his head thing, go oh, and get that high pitched Doctor squeal.
The enthusiasm of the Doctor was still in
I was
such-
not expecting any of that,
Yeah,
and I
I
was
didn't
so
either.
glad it was there.
I think he was the perfect blend of the classic Doctors and the new Doctors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He truly does bridge that gap.
You know what I thought helped that is the fact that when he shows up in 18th century Britain.
15th?
Oh, wasn't that long ago.
Whenever it was.
17th century, whatever.
It was 1600 something.
Was it? I thought
So
it was
17th
15
century
something.
Britain.
One of the centuries.
Yeah, I think it's 17th century. So when he shows up in 17th century Britain with
The
them,
Great Queen Bess's time.
it was almost that it was like I get a break from
1562.
having to be the War Doctor.
Was it 15?
I'm on vacation. I'm on holiday. And so it almost is like that warmth shows up
I
there.
get to be myself again.
Yeah, because that warmth shows up there because of the fact that, and I think that the other two guys were. I mean, I think 11 and 10 and 11 bring that out of him too. I think
so.
that sort of works. He's a little frustrated with them because they are childlike, but he also
what a
has
great
that
line that
warmth
was.
and enthusiasm as well. I thought that was
And then
wonderful.
timey-wimey
Why
line.
can't you speak like adults?
But I thought the chemistry of the three men on screen was phenomenal.
So good.
And the moment when Hurt realizes that, it would take hundreds of years to basically annihilate the atoms or the molecules in the door to be able to break out, and he realizes, that Wolf Rose,
She
prompts him about
It's the
same software, different casing.
And that was such a nice also parallel to the Doctor, talking about the Doctor, of this is still you, it's just a different case.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it conveys that to the audience.
Yes.
Too, yeah. And so, but that whole scene, and then you think, okay, this is how they're going to get out of here. And then Clark comes crashing through the door.
Bravo, Stephen Moffat, for setting this up. The red setting works on wood, and I'm totally buying it. And giving me the scientific rationale for how you're going to disintegrate this wood door, and making me go, okay, I'll buy it,
That
and
works.
not going there. That was the height of genius.
But that was also telegraphing what we were going to get at the end, too. That was completely telegraphing the fact that how we were going to make this stasis cube. That was Stephen Moffat telling you,
I see what you're saying.
I'm going to have all 13 doctors, and it's because he's been planning it he figures a way out how to plan it for as many years as it needs to be.
So does that mean every episode we've ever watched where he's standing there fiddling, muddling something about coordinates, this is what he was working on? It's like SETI. He's just been working on it for the last 50 years.
It's always in the background of his mind.
Yeah. It's just been percolating.
Well, I get the impression also that 11 contacted everybody and said, "Hey, now's the time." So
that was the one thing that I missed. I wanted them to stop and say contact.
Oh, that would have been cool.
Very cool.
Instead, they did the really cool remembering thing.
Yeah.
Where then when David Tennant goes, "Oh, I'm getting it now too."
Yeah.
Oh, that is
That was
the kind of everybody was filling in, but it was
Right.
like I wanted the contact. It would have
Right.
been cool. But oh well,
Right.
yeah, tiny little nothing.
You know another tiny little thing I really appreciated? This is kind of jumping off subject. The Time Fisher totally looked like the special edition effect for the 5 Doctors.
It really did.
It was.
Screw you.
It really did.
You'll see it next
Yeah.
on Friday, and you'll be like,
It
"That's
really
totally the
did.
same Time
Toilet
Fisher."
bowl.
Really
Flush.
did. Yep. It really did.
I think
Better
they-
realized.
Yeah, well, okay, I'll give you that one. I think they missed an opportunity when War Doctor picks up the fez and brushes it off, and I went, "Oh." And then he didn't put it on. I was like, "Oh, I wanted to see John Hurt in the fez."
Oh, the best was when Billy Piper says, "Well, that's not what I didn't expect that."
I love everybody's reaction. And the only person that was excited about it was Matt Smith.
Yes.
Everybody else was like, "Or a fez could fall out."
Using Clara as the witch of the well.
Why do I have to be the witch? Well, it could have been
Anybody
either one of them, and Kate just throws her under the bus.
Yes,
Right,
he's
right.
talking about you. What? Anybody else a little underwhelmed with Claire's portrayal there? I would have thought she would have. I don't. Amy would have
On the
jumped
ball
into
more?
it.
Yeah.
Amy would,
totally
and she,
would.
Amy would have done a
That's
voice.
what makes
and-
Clara so different.
Yeah,
It's true.
that's true.
That's what I liked about that. That's what I loved about the fact that Clara. I'm not gonna play the wit. Okay, I'll do it a little bit. Okay, now what?
John Hurt didn't put on the
I
fez.
love that. He does.
There's a production photo of everybody in the TARDIS from everybody that worked
Very
on it,
cool.
and John Hurt's wearing the fez.
Very cool.
That's awesome. We'll have to post that.
What,
Send Glenn a link.
I'll just retweet it.
I
on the
already
Treadmill
told you
thing.
about putting photos and other media in the feed. Out bogs down the.
I don't care. 50th anniversary, baby.
What else? What else?
Oh, there's just
We're
too
getting
much
there.
awesome in
We're
this.
getting there. All right. Since we're talking about the continual thread and how everything needed to be pushed down the line and how the screwdrivers is just an illustration of that and how everything's kind of interlinking. And you talked about the memories. Oh, I remember this. I sort of, and that kind of thing. That
And the
the
great-
moment was not Rose at all. It was not Bad Wolf. You know who the moment was? It's Clara.
Yeah.
Oh.
This is her visiting the Ninth Doctor in the persona of Rose. Now, it has to be that way to be the surprise for us, so we don't see it coming. But the line, "You clever," she says it, "You
Wrong.
clever boys." She
Oh,
says
yes.
that. And that's when I went, that's why Clara, there's the Clara visits, you see clips of Clara visiting every doctor
Right.
except for the War Doctor, with the exception of at the end when she's in that one weird area. But Matt takes her out of that. The 11th Doctor takes her away from that. So she has no way of contacting or doing something for the 11th Doctor to repair the timeline that the Great Intelligence has screwed up. This was where she enters
Oh.
the War Doctor's timeline. And she's the one that fixes the timeline in both ways, because she guides him to where he needs to be so that Clara can convince the 11th Doctor at the time that they're all together.
That's a
who
stretch.
it was. No, that's not a stretch at all.
Totally a
It's
stretch.
totally her.
That's totally a stretch because I don't think, even with her immense ability to not die from being fractured throughout time and assisting the Doctor, even if it's something as simple as helping him up off of an ice cliff or whatever else, convincing him to pick the right TARDIS or saving him from something dastardly later, I don't think she had the power to break the time lock.
She didn't.
They comment, something must be letting us through. These events should be time locked. There's no way we should be here. And Bad Wolf smiles
Let me do
because
this.
she's letting them
Let me
in.
do this. You know what the time lock is?
The moment?
No. The time lock is what they did at the end of this story. By putting them in a different parallel universe, that's what the time lock is. The Doctor's always been under the impression that when he set the moment off, it destroyed Gallifrey, burned it, everything on it, and locked the events in a time lock. These events happened all along, with the exception of, yes, they did change the moment by being there, but this was always essentially destined to happen in their timelines. They just forget about it because they walked back into their timelines, and when the timelines get back into sync, everything's fine, because he says they're out of sync, and that's why
I agree with that, but I still think
this is the time
I still
lock.
think there is a time lock.
There hasn't been a time
because
lock.
Davros escapes it. They've made references to it before that other people have gotten out.
You're absolutely right. There is a time lock beyond their moment there. So anything that happened once that happens, everybody that escaped out of the time lock, there was no time lock. It wasn't locked until that happened.
So all those people that escaped before...
That's why the
fall of
Master
Arcadia.
escaped. That's why Davros escaped. I'm convinced that's
how
why the Time Lords were able to move Gallifrey across in the... If you want to work the stories and Tennant's exact next story, which should be the... That's why all of that is allowed to happen. It's presumed by the Doctor, who's the only thing that remains besides everybody that starts popping up. There was no actual literal time lock. What happened is, beyond that, because Gallifrey was taken out of time and put into this pocket universe, into this stasis, that's what the time lock is. But there was no, I can't get out of here until beyond that moment. That's the time lock, is the fact that Gallifrey is somewhere else. That's why nobody can get in and out of Gallifrey at this point. But that's what
I would
locked.
take it almost one step further in the fact that that's what the Time Lords were trying to do, was get out of that alternate bubble. Because in theory, it's near the end, too.
And I disagree with that now. I think this illustrates that they got out of that, what they thought was going to be a bubble.
They got out, and then the Doctor sent them back. He thought he sent them back to the time lock, but he in fact sent them back to this.
But here's my
painted
theory on that
universe.
as well, is he sent them back to this point because here's what's happening.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
He sends them back to this point so that they can go into the stasis cube. That they can be locked into this parallel universe. Because here's what happens is, they give us that wonderful line when the generals and the war tacticians are down there and the Doctor's contacting him, and actually it's when they're going to that room earlier, and they make the comment that the High Council's
upstairs
is upstairs working on their own plan.
That's Rassilon and his
That's
cronies
going on
doing
at that
bit.
time.
Right.
That's what happens. And
that's why I believe this is all still time locked, and it's not at this moment, because the plan that Rassilon's making at that time is, we've got to find a way to get out of here and end this. And the only thing that they're able to get out is the drum signal to the Master. That's the only thing that will escape. They've done everything else to get out of that enclosure, but they're not in the pocket universe yet. So I still think that there is a physical time lock to prevent people from meddling with the events of that time.
You'll have to remind me. Do they ever say we've tried everything to get out? Do they ever tell you that?
Well, I don't know. It's been a long time since I've seen that time. But
I don't think they... I think they're under the assumption that they can't. In fact, that's why that was my... One of the things that's bothered me about this fixed into time for me on a lot of levels. That white point star that he talks about, that he just flicks into that thing and it goes, well, how did that get out of the time bubble? It didn't have to. There wasn't a time bubble. The time bubble essentially is what, so beyond the point that they went into the stasis point, everybody has, I mean, the Doctor is the only one that's told us that there's a time bubble, that those events are locked. It's the only reason those events are locked is because nobody can get there, here or there, from the future or the past, because Gallifrey's gone. It's locked away in its own little universe now. Its whole timeline and everything. That's why they were able to get in before they made that choice, that moment, that point in time. That's why Gallifrey can exist, and that's why I think that's going to be the 12th Doctor's
that I agree with.
Arc is
quest.
Going to find Gallifrey.
Agreed.
Now. I think it's time. Somebody explained it as time boomeranging back around on itself and changing those events at that point. I don't think it even really changed those events. I think this was kind of how it all really happened.
I agree.
I agree.
I don't think it changed the events.
And see, that's something that I have
don't
read.
think there was ever a time bubble. I think it fixes this whole conceptual idea of this time bubble that we've always talked about, that I think genuinely...
He's just convinced himself that he can't go back there.
I think he's convinced himself, and that's how he uses to convince others that he can't go look for it because it's gone and I'm locked out of that time stream. And everything else within it is. That's how all of that works for me.
Yeah, but surely there would have been another...
Why would
time agent who would go, I'm going to go to Gallifrey right before
all that happens is the moment burns Gallifrey. Why would it also set off a time bubble?
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Is I don't think the time lock has anything to do with.
You think he set off the moment?
I think the time lock has to do with the entirety of the events of the Time War, because it happened, it's done, you can't mess with it. So all of the timeline of the Time War is locked in that. Sure,
and who did that?
Well, it would be presumed that the Doctor did that
as
part of the events.
Yeah, it's presumed that the Doctor did that as part of the events. I don't think it had to have happened. I think it's something that the Doctor has convinced himself was done in the moment.
But that means the Doctor's the only one who knows.
I think the Doctor at any time could have gone back to any of the events right up to the moment.
Well, that's
why they're able to get in this time.
If the Doctor, if the Doctor could have, anybody could have. Anybody with a Vortex manipulator could have gone back at any point in time during that, and nobody has.
Right.
So I believe that there is a genuine time lock there. It's not just something the Doctor is telling people, because he's only one man.
Why would you go back to those moments? Why would you try? They already illustrated to us how horrific this war is. And I think that the Time Lords are so preoccupied, and I think the Daleks are so preoccupied that...
Well, I think everybody can agree that World War II is pretty horrible. And the first thing that Captain Jack did with the Time Vortex manipulator was try and go back to World War II and try and steal a piece of technology that was going to be destroyed and take advantage of the situation. Somebody in this galaxy somewhere would have tried to do it.
I suppose that's true, too.
So whether it was recovering a weapon or rescuing somebody they loved or something, saving a species that went extinct because their planet ceased to exist before they had the opportunity to do anything because of this. I don't believe that. I believe that and that's another reason. Now that this story's told, I don't want to see any more Time War stories.
I agree.
Because if it's locked off, it's like Tennant and Rose in that other universe. We're done with that. You can't get over there, so don't worry about it. It's extinct. And that's kind of what I want to believe with this.
See.
And I kind of have a problem with it just being, just the moment part of it being this fictional time bubble, because then that still leaves the rest of the history open for somebody to come in and play with.
But I don't think it does, because I think in my mind, when Gallifrey is put in this stasis bubble, or stasis cube, essentially, and put off into a painting somewhere, presumably, or a pocket universe somewhere, all of its future and all of its past is taken with it. So all of its past is gone. I mean, all of it is erased or taken with it. So it still exists, just there's no way to get to it now. And everything outside of it can't get to it.
Well, I guess it still ties in, because Clara visited the Fourth Doctor on Gallifrey during Invasion of Time.
And the First Doctor.
You'd have to assume that your theory is either completely right or completely wrong. Yeah. There's no part of it that works. But, okay, so... Maybe
that's just.
I think it's something that fandom will debate.
Oh, I'm sure they will.
I don't think it's something that we're actually going to truly get explained.
No,
It's
I
going to be
think
one
you're
of
right.
those. It's going to be
You're
one of
right.
those fandom arguments.
But
that'll
the
last
nice thing
forever.
about it is it doesn't feel like there's a loose end there either.
No.
See, I didn't feel like there
either
was.
way,
Yeah.
it's
It works either way. Whatever
Right,
you
it
want to
does work.
subscribe to.
Right. It's like canon.
It's
Whatever's in your
headcanon.
head.
Has anybody
Sorry, I
seen?
didn't mean to derail us
No,
there
no,
for
no,
a while
you're
to get
fine.
off onto that.
Has anybody seen Moffat's comments on the regeneration limit?
Yeah.
Not since Day of the Doctor.
Not since Day of the Doctor. Speaking at a convention, at the 50th convention, he said he has no more ever called himself the 11th Doctor than he would call himself Matt Smith.
Right.
The Doctor doesn't know off the top of his head what number he is. If you worry about such things, and I do, then I specifically said John Hurt's Doctor doesn't use the title. Matt Smith's Doctor is in his 12th body, but is the 11th Doctor. However, there is no such character as the 11th Doctor. He's just the Doctor. That's what he calls himself.
Agreed.
The numbering doesn't matter, except for those lists that you and I have been making for many years. So I've given you the option of not counting John Hurt numerically. However, and this is Moffat twisting that screw, he also responded to questions about the Doctor's regeneration limit introduced in Deadly Assassin. McGann turns into John Hurt, so they're not the same incarnation. He used up another regeneration, and I expect he'll be in trouble shortly. You can't break the rules laid down in the Deadly Assassin.
Good.
Keep reading that.
He teased.
He has a plan.
I think he has a plan.
You know,
you guys.
Sarah had such a brilliant.
I don't understand why fandom so much cares for this
Well, I'm
regeneration
just curious,
rule. That it's
You know-
it's arbitrary. It's based on whose hand the show is in. Why do we care
Here's
about
why.
it?
Here's why.
It'll be fixed.
It will be
yes.
fixed, and now we have an inkling of how. Something that I personally have always believed that the 12 regeneration limit is biologic. I have always believed that. And a lot of fans don't. A lot of fans believe that it was a hard and fast rule that was in place by the Time Lords and that they enforced it. But now that Gallifrey's gone and there are no more Time Lords, the rule goes out the window and he can have as many as he wants. And I've always felt that just seems like I don't know, it's a cheat or something. It just doesn't really work for me. But let's assume for a moment that it is. We now know that the Time Lords aren't gone. Gallifrey's out there and it exists.
Mm-hmm.
So Peter Capaldi's daughter to come in and do the quest
Maybe
for
that's
Gallifrey.
why he's going to search for Gallifrey
And
also.
well,
so he can
I
get more
hope that's the
regeneration.
case.
He
'cause
will
that would be a
find
nice
them.
MacGuffin.
He
It
will
would.
save them, pop them out of the whatever status bubble, and to reward him, they will say, "Here's 12 more regenerations."
How's
And
that not biological then?
That's what I'm saying. If you assume for a moment that it is the hard and fast rule, or that the Time Lords can grant him biologically another 12, like they offered the Master.
Like they
Right.
gave the
Well, that's
Master.
what I was going to say. Is the fact they didn't give them to him, but they promised him.
Well, that's
Yeah.
true.
But here's the thing: is that's my problem with it is the fact that in the Five Doctors they tell the Master they'll give him a new set of
Yeah, give him
regenerations.
another set of
That's not
regenerations.
biological to me. And you started that comment by saying, "Well, I think they're biological." I don't think that's biological.
Well, I
don't think it's
it can be biological.
I don't
if-
think it's a police it yourself rule.
No, that's just because. Well, maybe that's why so many Time Lords go rogue.
I wonder if also
Screw this, I'm done.
the regenerations and the limits, and maybe biologically you only have 13, but then they have the elixirs that they got from the Sisterhood of Karn that can give you more.
Yeah, right. It's still biologic, but it's
I think
biologic
the
controlled.
I
by
think the
Time Lords.
Sisterhood.
Because they took this, they took
They did say that Rassilon stole some of their secrets
in order to. We assume, we don't know for sure, but it's in order to give regenerations.
Right.
Anyway, so in my
So-
mind, Moffat's fixed it. He's already figured it out that I'm
In
going to
my
set this
mind-
up and I'm going to leave it for
Here
the
you
next
go.
person.
In
Here's
my
12
mind,
more.
Moffat's going to fix it anyway. So
Yeah.
why do we have to look for the clues?
Sarah, while watching it, had a brilliant idea that had they actually pushed the button, would have fixed the entire thing. Because his punishment would have been to live. And that means he would never stop regenerating.
Ooh.
I thought, wow, that's really brilliant. Too bad he doesn't actually push the button.
Kind of metaphysical.
That's the other thing I want to touch on real briefly is that there's some fandom out there that's a little upset over the events of how this plays out, and I quote, because this has now made all of RTD's years superfluous.
No,
So
it doesn't.
nothing,
No, it
that-
doesn't at
nothing
all.
that
It
that's,
doesn't at all.
and I don't understand where they're coming from with this because they're
That's like
complaining
saying
that
the island never happened.
He erased the Time War. He did this. He fixed it. It's like, no, he didn't. If you go back and look at how it's constructed, as you pointed out, this is the way it was always meant to be. it's not that the Time War
The
didn't
Doctor
happen.
just remembers it wrong.
That's it exactly. And as far as the rest of the universe is concerned, Gallifrey exploded. The Dalek fleet went with it. There was a huge, tremendous boom, and everything was gone.
Because you are right. The Doctor's the only one that ever mentions the time lock.
So as far as the rest of the galaxy is concerned,
They just
That's what
annihilated
happened.
each other.
the details are up for debate.
No, yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I think fandom is drilled in too much on this. This is how it has to happen, and now he's gone back and changed it. It's like,
Agreed.
no, he didn't change it. It was part of
All right.
his natural part to be there.
I've been on a high for 3 days of euphoria, and I'm not going to even bother with anybody that has anything bad to say about this right now. So we'll debate that later. But,
Okay.
But I'm
Time War
totally
Part 2.
I'm totally on the same page with you as far as these fans, but I don't want to talk about them.
No, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the other unexpected things. I did not expect to see Kate Stewart for as long as we did, and I was happy we did.
You'd said that, and I said, no, I think we're going to get more. So I think I get the I told you so.
You get the
on
I
that
told
one.
you so on that one. I like the fact that we got Kate Stewart's morphing into it.
That was cool.
That was cool.
That was neat. That was a good. That was a good 21st century way to take the rubbery monster and give it some CGI effect. Just because that's the thing is you see that terrible special effect that looks terrible now from Terror of the Zygons. That looked really cool when we were kids.
And
You can't
for
do
the
that
time.
now.
It still looks impressive.
Yeah, you can't do that now.
Yeah.
And so through the whole thing, we just see them step behind something, and then they've changed, or they cut away.
And you
they've
notice
changed.
they still pulled that?
Oh,
They
yeah,
still
yeah,
did that
yeah.
when he goes, allow me to change to something more comfortable, and he walks across the room, and there's something that
Yep.
gets...
Yeah.
And then all
We
of a sudden
just
it's
see her
her
feet.
boots.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they did it again.
So that was wonderfully done, and so to be able to see that was really cool.
The only thing I really didn't care for was all the spitting. They didn't seem to spit
And
like
all-
that
all
They
all
did.
monsters
in the
now.
original.
They didn't,
So
but
they wanted to try to make it even
It's
grosser.
a nice update. I thought it was fine.
Yeah, it didn't bother me at all.
This was one of those things that when they finally figured out what they're going to do, that they're going to put them in a stasis field and put them in a little pocket universe somewhere where nobody will know where they're at, and they're going to fix the plan. And then it's all coming together, and we do we're explaining to the Time Lords what we're going to do, to the General what we're going to do. And we have that whole moment of exchange, and then when he says, I've been thinking about this for, thousands of years, or whatever he says, that line. And Hartnell gets to be the first Doctor gets to be the very first one to fly in and make the first line. And I thought the same thing. That has been recorded for this show. That is not archival audio. That was brilliant.
I couldn't hear any of what they
And I
said
hope
during
that
the
was-
first video.
We got none of that because
I
it was
hope
all-
that was William Russell that recorded that line for him, because he did it for Light at the End, and I think it'll be awesome.
We
Awesome.
didn't talk about his cameo in Adventure in Time and Space.
I never saw him.
He's in the very beginning.
Is he? I never
he's
saw him.
the policeman that gives Sidney Newman a hard time.
He is. He's the one when he walks up.
he
Okay,
has a
I
mustache. That's
totally
what's
didn't
the-
get it. And I saw Carol Ann Ford's cameo. She's the one that runs out on the street to tell her kid that show he wants to watch is on. That's Carol Ann Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Missed it.
So I think, I missed the William Russell one, and he was more obvious. And
I wasn't sure if it was her, but I thought it sounded like her.
So
Sorry.
anyway, so no, that's great.
Here at the BBC.
And then we start to see all of the different Doctors on the screens, and we hear the dialogue coming from him. And I think some of it was lifted from the classic series, but done in such a way that it was good. And obviously, all of the clips were archival footage. I don't care. It worked so well, and it was shot and constructed in such a way that it all looked brand new, and all my Doctors are there. And then we get that, and wonderfully so. As much as I've been down on Christopher Eccleston, wonderful. He was feeling so missed in this story for me, and that was one of the things that just way back in the back of my mind was just bothering me, was the fact that Chris just isn't here.
You know
but
what?
to get that full on quick shot of him when he
The
said
full screen,
the
yes.
full screen shot, I was like, that was so appropriate that he didn't
Agreed.
just have a little image on a bubble in the screen, that he was full on, and they made that choice to edit that in there. I thought that was fantastic. And
I see what you did there.
so when that happened, and then we did all that, and so I'm already I'm gleaning, yay, just watching it. My eyes are like this big, and I'm going, this is what this has to be, and this is so perfect, and you can't make this any more perfect than that.
13.
I was doing, and no sir, 13, and I was that moment of slow motion. Like,
I don't think I even heard that
did
line
I
the first time.
Oh, I did. And I went, wait, what? It was just one of those moments of, and I can remember it so clearly thinking, wait, no. And then when you hit the eyes, and I went, ah! And my family's looking at me like, what the heck are you doing now? And I hit Caitlin because she was sitting next to me. I kind of tapped her like this, and I said, do you know who that was? And she goes, was that the next doctor? And she goes, that was the next doctor! So there was Peter Capaldi.
There was a roar that went up from the crowd in the theater at his eye, and I'll freely admit I may have led the charge on that one. I was almost out of my seat going, yes! I don't know why that excited me so much, but it did.
I've only seen this beginning to end now
I
three
couldn't
times.
scream at that because the tears were
Yeah,
starting to well.
I was so verklempt. That's probably all I could get out with.
I was cheering. Tears were rolling, but I was cheering too. I've watched this beginning and 3 times now, but I have gone back and watched that clip over and over and over again because I could not believe that we got the guy that's going to take over as the Doctor on the 50th. We've never, ever seen a true how this is going to work out in real life. Got to look at the Doctor's future. We have never really, with Valyard, we have. You can say, okay, we've got to look at the Doctor's future because obviously Valyard's a Doctor. Guess what? We don't know how that's going to work, but we know how this is going to work out, and we get a genuine peek into the future. Oh, that was so cool. That was the moment. And after all that, and they're talking, and they're saying, we're gonna, we're gonna leave, we're gonna forget this, and I was like, yeah, that's how it has to work, because and then Matt makes the line about how the timelines are out of sync, and that's why. And I went, oh, that's the perfect explanation for why they're gonna forget it. And then I'm sitting there, and she says somebody wants to talk to you, the curator, and I had seen the Tom Baker stuff previously that he had mentioned to HuffPost that he was. But it was one of those moments like, it just occurred to me when he was waiting there on the curator, it occurred to me that I hadn't seen Tom. But then I rationalized in my head that, well, I did. He was on that monitor, and so that's what he clearly meant. This surely, I did, and I thought, this surely can't. And when I heard his voice, I went, and I mean, just tears welled up in my. And it was just like Dr. Phil said. It was like, that was a moment of our childhood, and then when he ends in Logopolis, and he's done with the role of the Doctor, and Peter Davison comes along, and it's all over with for you as a kid. I mean, you're going to get him in reruns, and you can go revisit, but you're not getting anything more and new in Doctor Who. That's it. He's done. And when he came on the screen, it was like, my inner child just came back out because I was sitting there watching my Doctor on the screen in Doctor Who, and it was so incredible because he wasn't there again for the 5 Doctors. He there's clips of him, and
it's not the
at
same.
the time I don't think I knew that they were clips that had already been done, but
it was just this
unnatural
anger. Where's my guy?
Yeah, and then he's not, and it's this is the way that it played out, and I genuinely believe that because 11 makes the comment that I could settle down, I could be a curator, that's what I could do at the end of my life. When that they have the interchange, and the curator says something to the effect is, I went back and revisited a few faces, some of the favorites, and he winks. That solidified to me is that we got another glimpse into the Doctor's future that we probably, hopefully, will never really see come to fruition.
Yes.
But it was such a wonderful moment that if this is the Doctor in the future, that he chose my Doctor. He chose my Doctor's old face to, go to a to come to end with. And that was so wonderful. And the interaction between the two was just, I'm sorry, I'm getting all worked up again over it again.
I'll be honest, when she said there's an old man looking for you, I think it's a curator, and she walked off, there was a part of me that thought, this guy is going to walk into this room and shoot Matt Smith in the back. And it's going to be a Zygon that didn't get the memo. That there's still that one roaming around somewhere.
There's the Cyberman Bob.
Yeah, and then we're going to get the regeneration. And Peter Capaldi's going to show up. And I thought to myself, yeah, that'd be cool. And then I smacked myself mentally. I was like, that would suck. That's a horrible ending. Why would you? We're on such a high. You can't. But then I thought, it's Stephen Moffat. He'd do that to us. He'd give us this wonderful gem and then take it away and say, no, you can't have it. Here's what I'm going to give you at Christmas. And then it didn't happen. And instead it was Tom Baker. So I kind of went from the ultimate fear and dread of whose footsteps were coming to, boom, to the other side of the thing.
And of course, in the theater, we couldn't hear the line of revisiting old faces.
Yeah, no,
because of the screaming.
There was too much. Yeah,
I honestly thought it was going to be 12. I thought it was going to be Peter Capaldi kind of revisiting or coming back and somehow folding back time in and on itself, and somehow.
I'll see you soon.
Yeah, something
that would have been cool. That would have been cool.
What's coming?
That's way better than the regeneration
Especially
that
after,
I was worried about.
But then we did go to the setup of what's coming, so it works.
I had a thought today that I shared with Glenn earlier when he stopped in at work. I can't quite fix it, so I'm going to rely on my Vortexians out there to help me with this. Paul McGann drinks the elixir to regenerate at the Night of the Doctor special and goes all gold sparkly regeneration. Which
slightly
is,
green.
Well, it's kind of the new established.
There's a kind of green hint to part of it. Go rewatch.
I think your set
I've
needs
watched
adjusted.
it about 17
I noticed
times.
it on I've watched it
see
like
green
4
ever.
different screens.
I never saw green.
There looks like a hint of green near the end. Maybe it's just...
No, it's not gold. Anyway, so he starts the traditional now.
Yes.
Gold sparkle regeneration. Is it maybe because all of the regenerations that have followed that elixir moment that they've stabilized? Because we've never gotten a similar regeneration, that it's always been one after another, and it's all been different. That sometimes it's this, and he fades, and sometimes there's a creepy mummy, and sometimes there's this. And we never really know what you're going to get with this regeneration bit. Sometimes he just rolls over and the wig goes, and his face melts. But then I thought, maybe the elixir causes that. Maybe it's because of the elixir that now he's all gold and sparkly. And I went, yeah! And Glenn went, ooh! And then I went, except the Master glowed gold sparkly and Mel River
but
went
River
gold
did
sparkly.
twice.
The problem is it's River's the problem, because you can excuse the Master saying that the Time Lords gave him the the elixir in order to do that.
So how do we fix River?
But he never says they gave him the elixir.
Well, no,
we just know that they granted him more lives.
He got at least 2 more lives. So
how do we fix River?
I don't know. I'll think on it.
I like to think that the Master got a full-blown regeneration and used all of them in the Time War. That
wouldn't surprise me.
And
that's why he ran away at the end.
He probably thought, I'll go join up with the Daleks and help them destroy Gallifrey. And they shot him. And then he was like, well, I'll go do this with that person. And they shot him.
Well, I would hope he would know better than that, since they put him on trial.
Maybe that's why they put him on trial. He was a double agent during the Time War.
So anything else on the Day of the Doctor that you guys want to discuss?
So what if the moment has been prepared from Legopolis?
Yeah, what about it?
Handy bit of dialogue. Don't think it means a moment of anything.
You don't think he's... Do you think he named it the moment, calling back to that?
Or what, the moment?
The moment.
Who named it?
Stephen Moffat.
Oh, Stephen Moffat. I thought you meant the Doctor. The Doctor didn't name it.
No. Or maybe that's what he's talking about.
No, because it's not any...
I think it's one of those happy coincidences.
Have you not seen that?
I think that the Watcher was not the Doctor, it was Clara. Sorry.
The Watcher?
That I might buy. I'll give you that one.
No.
I don't think she was the moment, but...
She wasn't the moment. She was the interface. Don't get me
I
wrong.
don't buy that
I'm not
either.
saying that she was.
I don't buy it.
I'm not saying. I think that was where she popped into
but they
that
gave
timeline.
the dialogue and the conscience. The moment has a conscience. Obviously,
It
the
does.
conscience has to project itself somehow.
It does. What I'm saying is that Clara enters the time stream and becomes one
merges with the
merges.
moment.
That's what I was looking for. Merges with the
Clara is the conscience.
the conscience.
The moment
yes,
gains.
Yes, not Rose, like as we're led to believe.
Not
No, I don't believe it was
quantum
Rose.
leaps.
Well,
It wasn't Rose.
It wasn't
The,
Rose. It
the,
was
the
the
moment
moment.
gained a conscience. The moment
yes,
just used Rose
used.
as
That's
a
what I'm
face.
saying, but not used.
Same-
not
same-
Rose as we.
No, it's
presume it
the
to
same
be.
way the TARDIS has used
Idris.
Clara.
or Clara. Yeah,
It's,
no,
it's,
absolutely.
it's the
Rose.
exact same as
I agree.
Rose or Donna or
But it's-
Amelia.
But it's her vision.
It's not Rose.
It's her visual and her voice, and so we're led to believe that that's the persona. Is that it's Rose? That's not necessarily that it not is. It's not Rose,
It's not
but
Rose.
that's the
It's
persona.
not even
it's
Bad
using.
Wolf. It's just.
But it's
persona.
Clara in there that is
That's kind of a,
interfaced
that's
with
kind of a stretch.
or has.
It's an
merged
interesting
with-
idea.
That's the only reason why she said "you clever boys." That was Moffat
That's just
telling
a
us,
favorite
"Oh,
Moffat.
this is."
That's just a favorite Moffat line
That's
now.
that's just a
Well, let's talk about Peter Davison's wonderful fan project.
one last question.
Quickly.
We're all convinced that John Hurt does regenerate into.
Oh yeah, that was totally.
Eccleston.
They did a really good job, I think, photoshopping Eccleston's face on top
His
of
eyes
it.
were there.
I think his
and
mouth.
He said he saw.
I
his
didn't
mouth.
see the eyes.
More than
I saw
anything,
the
for
mouth.
me, I think it's the line. I saw his eyes. I didn't see his mouth.
Well,
but I think it's the line when he says,
that's
"I
the
hope
other
the
thing.
ears are
Oh,
less
absolutely.
You
pronounced."
haven't
And then
mentioned that either.
when Eccleston shows up and Rose going, "I'm not
Hurt's
sure about
Oh
the
yeah.
ears."
You know Hurt's first line?
Last line.
Well, before the ears comment
Oh
is this body's wearing a bit thin.
A bit thin.
You know what that's from?
It sounded familiar, but I didn't.
That was Hartnell's
We're gonna find out in 2
last
weeks.
line before he regenerates into Patrick
Was
Troughton.
it really?
Almost word for word. Almost word for word.
And find and
there's
see
feels
it
again.
in 2 weeks when we watch that episode.
I can't wait to watch that episode.
Yeah, that was so good.
I love the ears line too, which I didn't catch the first time.
Yeah, I didn't.
I had to watch it a second time before I really caught
It was the second time, and I didn't, and I didn't pick up on how he said it, and it wasn't until we
I
were
looked it
hashing
up,
it out.
yeah.
That I hope the ears are a little less conspicuous this time,
I'm not sure about the ears.
which is nice because that line was always carried over, and then the teeth thing was carried over,
Yes.
and the ginger thing was carried over, and so that's kind of nice. That there's
legs.
always been
Legs, I have legs.
except for was the first time we said, I'm a girl. No, not a girl. All right, well, let's talk about the wonderful fan film,
The Fish Doctor.
the BBC financed, Moffat financed fan film that is so wonderfully done by Peter Davison called the Five-ish Doctors Reboot.
The Fish Doctor.
What'd you guys think of this?
Oh, it was so much fun.
It
It started and I was just laughing the entire time. Sarah didn't quite get all the jokes, but especially when I started rolling when I got to Tom. I think that's my favorite part of the whole thing.
I was having a hard time every time Sylvester would show up and start talking about The Hobbit because it was like, yeah, pretty much.
Well, what's impressive is it starts and it's like, okay, that's very cute, and then it starts and you're like, it's cute, and then they're like, well, they went there, and then they went there, and they got them.
It was a tremendous effort for them, or not an effort. No, I mean it was a tremendous effort on their parts to be able to laugh at themselves.
Oh, yeah.
That's what made this so wonderful. Is the fact that they were able to poke fun at themselves, and they never took themselves seriously. In this.
And
that was
that
what
makes
good.
Colin's statement earlier that he made about being old baggage,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Well, you almost wonder if
Makes
that's
it
part
like
of
he was
it's-
playing up
He's still
this.
playing the
Yeah.
part
Yes.
at the time that he says that.
Yeah.
I
Surplus
genuinely
baggage.
hope so.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
where that's
I think
and
that-
that all of the anger and frustration that we fans have had about classic Doctors being in the special, that they've kind of mirrored that, but yet it wasn't with necessarily the intent of.
Oh, who said it? It's perfectly tongue planted firmly in cheek. Is what it is.
I really hope that's what it is.
And part of it feels like this entire thing was slightly based in reality. Like they kept calling, trying to make sure that.
See, I don't think that is at all true. I think that's because the fans.
It's what the fans think happened.
wanted it to happen. That's what the fans think, and I think that they played this up for the fans. Is what they.
I think that Stephen Moffat's reactions to them calling it is what the fans thought was happening. And I'm sorry, I am 100% convinced that Stephen Moffat writes with his action figures holding hands, going, "Okay, now what?" And then they go off and do this. That's how he writes. Not that I've done that.
I love the fact that Davison
it was so. Sorry, it was so Spaceballs. I totally thought that. No, sir, I didn't see you playing with your dolls again.
Davison did such a great job. Especially getting the all of the surviving companions in there and doing the whole going around.
Oh yes,
his head,
and even a head of canine,
which would can't.
I know
it'll make so much more sense and be even funnier when you see calves of Badgers on him.
Oh, nice.
It'll be so much better.
I'll probably start laughing
up in the middle. Is it me?
I'll probably start laughing at caves now.
I love that Janet Fielding was the voice of doom. They're not going to ask for you. You know they don't like it.
Oh, the best is when he's first having that dream.
Right this way, Mr.
And he walks down the aisle, and he sees Matt Smith. Matt Smith just comes up and says, "Oh, Mr. Davison, I think he says I'm a huge fan or whatever."
Fan, you're my favorite.
And then he goes and he looks over at Louise Coleman, and she says, "My mother was a huge fan of yours.
You were my mother's favorite."
You were my favorite. And then he walks by and he comes back and goes, "You were my favorite." And it's like, okay, that's how that dream's supposed to work.
I'll just put this in your Winnebago, Mr. Davison.
I think I didn't laugh any harder than when John Barrowman shows up. And they look in the car and they go, "Oh, I had no idea. Oh, wow. Okay, well, no, we'll leave you alone. It's okay."
I'm trying to figure out who he has in this car.
Yeah, I was too. I thought, where are they really going to go with this? And then to find it's a wife and kids. That was
And he sang all the way to Cardiff. And then gave them copies of
CDs and
videos. And then
they use it to get into the experience. And apparently everybody is using it to get into the experience.
I need to buy a John Barrowman CD to have on me when I go to the experience, just so that I can go and see if they get it.
I understand you don't take this. Wow. And then here's the thing. I watched that last night. And then I watched The Day of the Doctor again. And boy, if I wasn't looking to see if any of those shrouds moved. Because the Daleks got cut, which was wonderful. Because when I watched this and they crawled in the Skittle Daleks, I thought, oh, those weren't even the ones that were in it.
And then
that kind of stinks.
Yeah.
And then they showed that they got cut. I was like, oh my God.
And
this was so perfect. They had much more access to everything that was known that was going on than we
talking
ever
about.
knew.
We're doing now. We're doing the under
the gallery,
under gallery bit. Now we're doing this like wow. And
well, we even see it shot.
They shot from that other angle.
Yeah.
Well, no, there was the same shot. The camera was still there, and they used it when they cut back to a perspective of Matt just asking about a desk or something in that scene.
Right.
They use that exact same shot.
I didn't realize that they used that shot.
It's a one only, but it's there.
The statue.
We don't have time to get you into the Zygon outfits, but we just need shrouds for this one. And as soon as they handed him the shrouds, I knew exactly what part of The Day of the Doctor. That's why you so have to see the Five-ish Doctors reboot after you've seen Day of the Doctor.
I suppose we should have flown the spoiler flag at the beginning of the broadcast.
Spoiler flag on these type of episodes. We presume
but Fish Doctor.
I don't think it ruins.
Well, no, I don't think it ruins Fish Doctor.
I don't think it ruins the Day of the Doctor because Sarah and I watched it and she didn't get to see Day of the Doctor until today.
Oh.
And if she didn't
Well, good.
really say, oh.
I'm glad it doesn't
she
work
didn't-
out that
She
way.
didn't say anything about making the connections. So,
But I sure look for
But
those
she also
drafts
hasn't
anyway.
said a lot about it yet.
Let me
She's
rephrase.
processing it.
I don't think it spoils Day of the Doctor. I think it makes Fish Doctor funnier.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
If you've seen him in the right
Agreed.
order.
Yes, agreed. And then just to have the after...
The end
The
of
very
Russell.
thing
I have
Russell
always
T.
loved.
Davis.
Hang on, I've
was.
always loved Colin Baker and his ability to poke fun at himself. But when he's complaining about there's no signal down at the bottom of the garden, and then the next scene is him standing on top of the lawnmower with his cell phone out. And every picture, he's reading the magazine with his picture on the front, and he's like, "Oh, my favorite DVD came, and we're going to watch it to replace the one that mysteriously disappeared."
And it's Vengeance on
It's
Burroughs.
Vengeance on Burroughs.
It's one of probably his best stories. At least fan thoughts.
I've already locked the doors. There's no way out. I've already locked the doors.
And Paul McGann, who couldn't be more awesome if he tried, looks really awesome in a beard.
Oh, gosh. The beauty of that is the fact that I thought Paul McGann would be in it more.
Yeah.
And he wasn't. And they said, and they make the comment, where's McGann? Prior filming commitments. And I thought, that could have been either way. If he had never been in Night of the Doctor, that could have been just, he's got a very busy schedule. But it worked so well that the reason why he had a prior filming commitment is he was shooting Night of the Doctor.
I thought that's what he was on the phone about during that convention.
Until he asked.
Until the end, yeah. I thought, oh, he's talking
Whatever
about
you're
that.
planning, I'm in.
Because he's so...
It works perfectly that Tom is not in it, except for the picture on the kid's shirt. But it worked so well because he was actually in the Day of the Doctor. It just all worked out so well.
And they used the same clip.
Yeah.
Well, did you... The picture leaked, I think, of David in that back hallway on the phone. Because I remember us talking...
Oh, I forgot about Tennant. Yeah.
Yeah. George is having the baby.
It's like, can you do this for Dad? He doesn't really need this. It's all right. One more favor.
But if that bit didn't leak somehow, it's totally calling back to the whole he was on the phone with Georgia during the filming that they supposedly got.
That was that picture.
Wasn't it?
Yes.
Do you
it
remember
totally
this?
was
I
that
don't remember this
picture.
picture. I remember we talked about a picture. I don't think I ever saw the picture.
Yeah, it was him in that back hallway. I'm pretty sure.
Talking to, and they said that he was talking
Either
to
that-
George on the phone.
Well, I think there were a lot of pictures of David Tennant on the phone during the filming, but because there was also a scene on the grassy knoll of him on the phone too.
Oh, that's right, out in the field.
In
Yeah,
the
that's
parka.
right. Yeah.
That one I saw.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Well, it seems
if
like I
nothing
saw
else,
a
it was
picture.
very callback to that.
The fact that she's having the baby while David's working.
And doesn't even mention it. She goes to and he hangs
There's
out.
something I was going to ask. There's something I was going to tell him. Push.
That was a wonderful gift to the fans.
It was
that's what they've.
This is partially why I wish I had seen Adventure Time, Space and Time then. This is the perfect wrap up to the 50th anniversary
I thought the exact
celebrations.
same thing. I thought I was so glad I saw everything in the order that it dropped because I just for the reason I said earlier that the Adventure in Time and Space was perfect. It was that wonderful. In fact, I got home last night and I saw that was online and it was on one of the news feeds that I have, and I saw that and I thought, oh, this is In fact, I felt like I was going to be let down by it because I thought, this is such a wonderful day. Is this really the way I want to cap the day off, is to watch this? Maybe I should settle down a little bit and watch this tomorrow and be able to appreciate it for what Davis is trying to do here.
It is.
And I thought, I'm going to go ahead and watch it now. And man, was it the perfect cap off to my night. Oh my
It really
gosh,
was.
it was so
I'm
good.
so glad I watched it when I got home.
Yeah. Oh man, it was so wonderful. All right, well, we've waxed on for nearly 3 hours here. So, let's not do
It's
a
not
full-blown
like
schedule.
we had a lot of stuff to cover.
Let's just talk a little bit about what's going on next weekend.
Why wouldn't we going to do a full schedule anyway?
You sometimes
You know why?
go way out.
We only
You
had it scheduled for 2
you
weeks.
sometimes look at me like, and then?
And then...
And I feel like I have to keep going, even though I only plan to give you next week. And then you're like, and then?
Well, let's give at least 2 weeks.
Nope, next week's
Because there's
There
stuff people need to listen
is
to.
an important one. Okay, here's the deal.
Okay, go ahead.
Friday Night Who this week, the 5 Doctors, because
Special
we
edition.
are not done with multi-doctor stories and celebrating the 50. You may think your wrap-up is done, but here at Traveling the Vortex, we are a month behind everybody else, and we're still going.
And I am going to host a Who with Friends sometime this week, probably either Wednesday or Thursday, of the 3 Doctors.
Okay.
So we're watching the 3 Doctors this week and the 5 Doctors this week.
Just because I want another multi-doctor story.
So Who with Friends sometime this week.
Look,
3
I will
Doctors.
tweet it out and put a Facebook message asking.
Sean's going,
When?
I don't ever get to show up to these things.
One more, I won't get to one. You realize it's Thanksgiving week, right?
All right, so then then what are we doing? Crap.
Now you go ahead and show. Yeah.
I'm going to figure it out.
Look on
Well,
Twitter.
do it Wednesday. Let's do it
No,
Wednesday.
I got to get up early Thursday.
Oh, that's right, you're working.
Look on
We'll
Twitter
probably do
for
it.
the surprise announcement of more Who.
We'll do it Thursday night. Nobody's doing anything.
I got to get up early Friday.
You'll be fine.
Well, actually, we could do it actual, like, normal time instead of late at night.
We could do it earlier because I'll be home.
Yeah.
I'm off. So
Look for a plan. I will
We'll
ask.
We'll figure something out.
And if I-
Apparently, there's
Alright,
going to be 3
so
doctors
3
sometime
doctors
this
on-
week.
okay.
5 doctors
Sometime
on
next
Friday.
week.
Okay.
Special edition. That's important. We're doing
Right.
a special edition with that crappy vortex effect tornado thing.
With the Day of the Doctor effect.
And then on Saturday night, I'm hosting a 2 Doctors Tweedle.
Get on your own.
Okay, so Sunday night, before we record,
No.
we're getting together to watch Time Crash.
No.
I'm hosting
okay.
that one.
Well, okay. No, before we do that, Sunday morning, I'm also hosting a Dimensions in Time Club. Don't think I'm not going to watch all of these this week because I'm going to be ready for Sunday night to go.
I
This is
forgot
why
my schedule
Dimensions in
changes.
Time works as a multi-doctor story. Sorry.
But it doesn't.
What comes up the next week?
So we're doing 5 Doctors Special Edition Friday night for Friday Night Who. Black Friday night. And then we're doing Big Finish Light at the end. So we still have more multi-doctor stuff coming. So you've got to have
Which
it.
is
You've
why
got
I
to
wanna
listen
watch the
to
3
it.
Doctors, too.
And so we've got Light at the end. That'll be the show. And then the following week, you got to go out and buy your copies because 10th Planet.
It's out
Oh.
now.
It's out. Is it out now?
Yeah.
I thought it drops Tuesday.
No, last Tuesday.
Whenever.
Tuesdays.
Oh.
Yeah, no, that's what I meant. Not last Tuesday. But
Oh, you got
Last
yours through
Tuesday.
Amazon. That one doesn't count because they
No,
ship early.
No, it didn't ship early.
All right. Well, Keith's got it in his hand.
you got it on Wednesday.
I got it
didn't you?
Wednesday, the day after.
He's got it in his hot little hand here. So 10th Planet released, and we were watching this one for Friday Night Who on 12/6 as part of our Cybermen archive. So we're going to do 10th Planet and Big Finish number 34, Spare Parts. So if you haven't listened to them yet, you need to get both Big Finish, Light at the End, and Spare Parts knocked out over the next 2 weeks. Do Light at the End first.
Well, that's why it was important to give people 2 weeks to get through all
Right.
that. I got you.
That's why we-
Because I was
that's why we
thinking,
did that.
we've known that we're doing those, but you're just giving everybody another heads
more
up.
time.
Just as a reminder, that you
Okay,
have to
heads up.
listen to them, and you have to go buy one if you haven't done
Okay,
it.
I'm glad you did that.
That's why we did that. I don't know why you guys went off on this whole multi-doctor story craze, but okay.
Because that's
high
what,
of
that's
the
what
doctor.
next week is multi-doctors.
Be glad when I'm out of school and I can start to participate in things again.
When's your fall break?
I've had fall break. I get Thanksgiving break this week, but it'll be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I'll be doing homework and then working. So it's not really a break for me.
That's the problem, is the working, yeah.
It means I don't have to go to work on Thursday. That's pretty much what this
You can
means.
join in though Thursday evening then.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, you'll be there. 3 Doctors Thursday.
I'll send out a message. It'll probably be either Tuesday or Thursday. I don't see the problem. I don't know what my
we could do it
plans are
Friday
Thursday yet.
right before Friday Night Who. We
That's
have a
true.
Who with friends,
We could do
Who
a
with friends
double feature.
From, double feature.
The late
That's kinda
night double
tempting.
feature picture show. I will have the rest of the schedule to the end of the year posted this week.
That's a
on
promise.
the website
That's a promise. That's a promise from Sean.
because it's done.
That's a promise from the busy Sean. All right.
You know what else Busy Sean promised?
What'd you call him? Promise?
You'd get all the doctors in the anniversary.
I'm surprised there wasn't more gloating.
You know what though? Stephen Moffat showed you up.
He did. He really did.
He said,
You got
Sean
all
said they're all going to be there.
13
All
or
12 are going to be there. And all 12 are there. And then
We got
Stephen said, aha!
13.
One more!
He didn't even say all 12. He just said 11.
I just
Because he
Well,
wasn't counting
yeah.
John Hurt.
Well, that's true. But all of them will be there.
Stephen Moffat +1 to me.
All right. Is that going to do it for this week?
I don't know. Is there anything else that we can wax philosophical on? Would you like to talk about some light bulbs or gutters?
Actually, you know what? The leaves are falling now, and no, I don't have anything. That's going to do it for me this week.
Is there anything
Until
else you want to
next
talk
week,
about on the fields?
I'm glad.
Any more tears to be shed? Or don't look at me like that. And then don't give me that. That's the same look you give me all the time. I'm Sean.
I'm Keith. Glenn forgot his goodbye.
What do I say next? Cheers.
It's been an emotional weekend.
He went on and on and on, and I had no idea what I was supposed to say.
My work here is done. Gallifrey dance!
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.